Chapter 119. Qin Feiyang glared and said angrily, "There's no time to dawdle, hurry up." "Oh." Feng Ling instinctively responded and reached out to grab Chang Shui. She only reacted after grabbing Chang Shui. This bastard actually dared to be fierce to her? Moreover, in that moment she was actually afraid. Seeing that this woman was about to flip out, Qin Feiyang grabbed her arm and appeared outside in the blink of an eye. Feng Ling was surprised. Wasn't this too magical? Little bastard, die. Lin Shan had been observing the surroundings. When he saw the two of them appear, he immediately pounced towards Qin Feiyang. Feng Ling's face turned cold and shouted, "Lin Shan, I'll give you another chance. If you escape with us now, I'll let bygones be bygones." Women are so long-winded. Qin Feiyang muttered and quickly took a step back. Lin Shan also turned a deaf ear and continued to pounce towards Qin Feiyang. His face was extremely ferocious. "Stubborn. Barbarian elephant fist." Feng Ling shouted explosively as she took a step to stand before Qin Feiyang, and then she stretched out her fair hand and clenched her fingers tightly before suddenly smashing out with her fist. It actually faintly carried the roar of a barbaric elephant. Barbarian elephant fist was also a perfect martial arts technique. "You pair of dogs, don't even think about leaving today. Return to origin palm." Lin Shan gritted his teeth and slapped towards Feng Ling with an astonishing palm wind. Thump! The fist and palm collided, and a violent wind suddenly rose. Both of their bodies shook and they retreated continuously. The white bones under their feet were accompanied by cracking sounds as they continued to shatter. Return to origin palm is also a perfect martial arts technique. It seems that the strength of the two is really similar. Qin Feiyang muttered. Back in Iron Ox Town, Lin Bai Li had also used the return to origin palm. Therefore he more or less understood. "Stinking bitch. Do you have to go against me?" Lin Shan roared. Clang! With a wave of his hand, a 3-chi long sword appeared in the air, gleaming with a frightening sharpness. "If I can't have a woman, no one else can either. Die!" His face was gloomy as he grabbed the sword in his hand. His genuine chi surged and the sword shone brightly. Accompanied by a sharp whistle, he slashed at Feng Ling. Autumn Light Sword. Feng Ling was shocked. She had seen this sword more than once. Its sharp blade was enough to tear apart any martial arts grandmaster's defense. The reason why Lin Shan was able to become one of the best in Swallow City's younger generation was not only because he was an alchemist, it was also because of the Autumn Light Sword in his hand. Countless powerful enemies had been defeated by this sword. The Autumn Light Sword slashed down furiously with a bone-piercing sharpness. She hurriedly brandished the Chang Shui. Clang! As sparks flew everywhere, the Autumn Light Sword that made her feel uneasy was instantly cut in half by Chang Shui. How is this possible? Lin Shan was stunned on the spot. He was dumbfounded. Feng Ling was also stunned. She then looked at the broken sword in Lin Shan's hand. Her heart was filled with disbelief. It was actually broken. This dagger was actually not an ornamental item. It could even break the Autumn Light Sword. Such sharpness was unheard of. In an instant, she was full of confidence. While Lin Shan was in a daze, she took a step forward and stabbed the dagger into Lin Shan's right chest. Puff! Immediately, blood spurted out like a fountain. Lin Shan could not help but cry out in pain. However, Qin Feiyang frowned. The heart was basically on the left side of the chest. Just now Feng Ling could totally stab the dagger into Lin Shan's heart and end his life. But in the end, she stabbed the Chang Shui into Lin Shan's right chest. He did not believe that Feng Ling would lose her guard. She must have done it on purpose to let Lin Shan off. "Let's go." Feng Ling pulled out the Chang Shui. She turned around and pulled Qin Feiyang, running towards the stone wall. "Aren't you afraid of letting the tiger return to the mountain?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Feng Ling said without turning her head. "He's just possessed now. After we escape, we'll inform the Lin family to save him." What a soft-hearted woman. Qin Feiyang struggled to break free and snatched the Chang Shui. He turned around and rushed towards Lin Shan. His eyes were filled with coldness. Boom! However, at this moment, a terrifying aura descended. Xuan descended from the sky, holding a thumb-thick iron chain in his hand. On the other end of the iron chain, Ling Yunfei and the rest were tied up. They could not move at all. Xuan looked down at Qin Feiyong like a devil descending to the world. He smiled and said, "If you dare to touch him, I'll kill them all." Qin Feiyong's eyes darkened. He stopped and looked at Ling Yunfei and the rest. He frowned and said, "Why didn't you just run away when you knew that the Eagle Claw Peak was strange?" "We did run away, but his speed was too fast. We couldn't escape at all." "Zhang Laoda, what's going on? Why did a devil suddenly appear?" Fatso and the rest were terrified. Qin Feiyong's face was as calm as water. He lowered his head and looked at Lin Chun, who was lying on the side. Whoosh! He rushed forward decisively. The Changshui shone with cold light. However, Xuan was like a lightning. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Lin Chun. His face was filled with a sinister smile. His bony hand turned into an eagle's claw and grabbed at Qin Feiyong. "Damn it!" Qin Feiyong cursed and quickly retreated. He grabbed Fengling Air and was ready to enter the castle. "If you dare to continue to hide, I'll kill him first." Xuan stepped on Fatso's face. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Zhang Laoda, I have parents and children to take care of. I can't die. You must save me." Fatso shouted in horror. "You're not married yet. How can you have children?" Ling Yunfei's face darkened. He shouted, "If you're a man, have some backbone. What's there to be afraid of?" He looked at Qin Feiyong with a smile on his face. "I don't have any other wish. I just hope that you can take care of my mother for me after I die." Then he looked up at Xuan and shouted, "Old thing, bring it on. If I frown, I'm your grandson." "That's more like a man." Fengling Air nodded. She looked down at Lin Chun and shouted, "Did you see that? He's only 15 or 16 years old. He just became a disciple of the Martial Imperial Hall. But he has backbone and faith. He's dozens or hundreds of times stronger than you. Don't you feel ashamed?" Lin Chun grinned. "Backbone and faith are bullshit. Nothing is more important than being alive. Master, quickly kill one of them. If we don't use our full strength, they won't wake up." "That makes sense." Xuan laughed. He pointed his index finger and a burst of battle chi shot out and entered Chun Ying's glabella. "Ah!" She screamed and died on the spot. There was a thumb-sized hole in her glabella. Blood was gushing out. Fatso and Lu Hong were scared out of their wits. Su Jian's cold face was filled with fear. Only Ling Yunfei stared coldly at Xuan. There was no fear or panic. "Zhang Haotian, right? Summon the nether demonic flame or he'll be the next to die." Xuan pointed at Su Jian. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Fengling Air panicked and looked helplessly at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong glanced at Fatso and the others. He looked up at Xuan and said, "It's not too late to stop now. You'll die if this matter gets out of hand." "Are you trying to scare me?" Xuan sneered. His eyes were filled with disdain. "Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you're an 8-star combat emperor. If the Yen County can't do anything to you, there's still the state capital. If the state capital can't do anything, there's still the imperial capital. Let me ask you, no matter how strong you are, can you be stronger than the people from the imperial capital? Can you be stronger than the emperor of the Great Qin Empire? In this world, the imperial capital is supreme. You're not allowed to stir up trouble." Qin Feiyong shouted sternly. Xuan's pupils shrunk. If this matter got out of hand, there was no need for the people from the imperial capital. The experts from the state capital were more than enough to crush his body and shatter his bones. But, as long as he killed all these people, he wouldn't be able to stir up any trouble. Xuan's eyes were filled with killing intent. He said, "How about this? If you return the nether demonic flame to me, not only will I let you go, but I'll also never refine the blood-killing pill again. How about that?" Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, "No one will believe your words. Why don't you come with us to the Yen City and turn yourself in? I'll return the nether demonic flame to you when we meet the king of Yen." Xuan grinned. "Kid, you're smart, but smart people usually die early. I'm sorry to tell you that you've worn out my patience." As soon as he finished speaking, a battle chi shot out from his finger and entered Su Jian's glabella. Su Jian died on the spot. However, Qin Feiyong, however, smiled and said, "Go ahead and kill them. In any case, I'm not very familiar with them. Oh right, that Lu Hong and I are still enemies. Hurry up and kill her, so as to avoid being an eyesore." "Zhang Haoyan, we're from the same sect. How can you be so heartless?" Lu Hong's face changed and she shouted, "When you tried to harm me, I didn't see you care about your sect." Qin Feiyong smiled disdainfully and looked at Zhuan. "Old man, I'll be honest with you. I won't give you the nether demonic flame. As for them, kill them if you want." After that, he led Fengling Heir into the castle. "Zhang Laoda, you can't abandon me," Fatso screamed. Zhuan was stunned. He turned to Lin Chan and said angrily, "Didn't you say that they're close to Zhang Haotian?" Lin Chan was also a little confused. "How ridiculous." Ling Yunfei shook his head and said sarcastically, "We've known Zhang Haotian for less than 3 months. Moreover, people use each other. How can he compromise with you to save us?" Zuan's face darkened. He was at a loss. Inside the castle, Fengling Heir stared at the nether demonic flame and suddenly said, "Zhang Haotian, why don't we just give him the pill fire?" Qin Feiyong said, "Do you think he'll let us go if we give him the pill fire?" Fengling Heir said, "Didn't he say so just now?" Qin Feiyong frowned. "What's wrong with you? Can't you tell that he's just trying to appease us? If we really give him the pill fire, he'll kill us without hesitation." It was rare that Fengling Heir didn't fly into a rage. She looked at Qin Feiyong helplessly and asked, "What should we do now? We can't just leave them to die, right?" "Don't worry. That old man is also very hesitant now. As long as we don't show up, he won't dare to kill Ling Yunfei and the other two. Because if we kill them, he won't have any chips to threaten us. The most important thing now is to find a way to get in touch with the people outside. Now only the big shots in Yen City can save us." Qin Feiyong sighed. However, the problem was that Zhuan was guarding outside. How could they contact the people outside? Chapter 120. How could he break out of this deadlock? Qin Feiyong racked his brains. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he turned to look at Fengling Heir and asked, "Do you have any image crystal?" Fengling Heir was also deep in thought. "Heard of it?" She shook her head and said, "No, if I did, I would have already asked for help." "No?" Qin Feiyong frowned and asked doubtfully, "Your position in the Martial Imperial Palace is not low. Why don't you even have an image crystal?" "Nonsense, do you know how expensive the image crystal is? Yen City's treasure pavilion only auctions one every month, and the price of the transaction is at least 5 million gold coins. Even if I sell all my belongings, I won't be able to gather so many gold coins. Moreover, if I really have 5 million gold coins, I might as well use it to buy pills and increase my own strength." Fengling Heir said angrily. "Long hair, short knowledge." Qin Feiyong despised. The benefits brought about by the image crystal stone were extraordinarily shocking. Take the current situation for example. If he had an image crystal, he would be able to ask for help from the people outside. He wouldn't be trapped here at all. "Your hair is not much shorter than mine." Fengling Heir sneered. "Then a certain part of your body should be bigger than mine, right?" Qin Feiyong laughed sinisterly. "Pervert, take this." Fengling Heir was startled. But when she saw Qin Feiyong's eyes, she instantly understood. She flew into a rage out of humiliation and pounced towards him with bared fangs and brandished claws. Qin Feiyong immediately retreated and said, "A gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists." Fengling Heir laughed sinisterly. "I am not a gentleman, I am a woman. This trick is useless against me." Qin Feiyong hurriedly said, "Haven't you heard, if you can use your mouth, try not to use your fists?" Fengling Heir chuckled. "Then have you heard, if you can use your fists, try not to use your mouth?" Qin Feiyong was both helpless and bitter. This woman was more difficult to deal with than she had imagined. Seeing that Fengling Heir was about to pounce on him, Qin Feiyong's eyes lit up. He hurriedly said, "Wait, I have an idea. Don't try to change the topic." Fengling Heir shouted. Qin Feiyong grabbed her wrist and said in a deep voice, "Don't mess around. I really have a solution." Seeing his serious face, Fengling Heir frowned and asked, "What method?" Qin Feiyong leaned over and whispered a few words into her ear. "Will this work?" After listening, Fengling Heir looked doubtful. Qin Feiyong said, Regardless of whether it works or not, we still have to try because this is the only way to escape. All right. Feng Ling Er nodded. I'll go out first. After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he instantly disappeared without a trace. Outside. As expected, Xuan did not kill Ling Yunfei and the other two. Seeing Qin Feiyong come out, he laughed sinisterly. Have you thought it through? Then hand over the nether devil flame. Qin Feiyong said disdainfully. You think too much. I just came out to tell you, don't run if you have the guts. Haha, Xuan laughed wildly, as if he had heard the best joke in the world. Is there something wrong with this little bastard's brain? He is an 8-star war emperor, why would he run? What a joke. Continue to laugh. I'll see how long you can laugh. Qin Feiyong sneered. Seeing his serious expression, Xuan raised his eyebrows and asked, What do you mean? Qin Feiyong shook his head. Nothing, just remember not to run. If you don't say it, I'll kill this fatso. Xuan stretched out his arm and pointed his index finger at Fatso's head. Qin Feiyong said indifferently, Even if you kill him, I won't say it. Fatso cried. Zhang Laoda, you can't be so heartless. For the sake of our night of revelry, please save Fat Lord. That night, revelry? Xuan's old face twitched, and his gaze became extremely strange. Ha! Lin Chun suddenly laughed, pointed at Qin Feiyong and said disdainfully, So you have this kind of hobby, and you even found such a fat pig. Your heavy taste is really scary. Qin Feiyong's face was dark. The night of revelry that Fatso mentioned was actually drinking at Spring Breeze restaurant last night. However, Fatso's words were too ambiguous, so the two mistakenly thought that he and Fatso were gay. Not to mention Lin Chun, even he felt disgusted when he thought about it. Zhang Laoda. Fatso opened his mouth again, wanting to say something. Shut up. Qin Feiyong roared. The words that came out of this bastard's mouth would definitely have a different meaning. He didn't want this misunderstanding to continue to deepen. Cough cough. Xuan coughed dryly and shouted. Say it quickly. Qin Feiyong said disdainfully. Don't scare me, I will never tell you that we have already informed King Yan and the rest through the image crystal. You have already said it. Lin Chen's eyes were full of ridicule. However, Xuan's face was extremely gloomy. Did you? Qin Feiyong was stunned. After thinking carefully, his face suddenly changed, and he hurriedly said, I was talking nonsense, it's not true, because we don't have the image crystal at all. Lin Chun wanted to continue mocking him, but his face suddenly turned pale. Because he had also realized the seriousness of the problem. Informed King Yan and the rest? Didn't that mean that King Yan and the rest were already on their way? Xuan asked. Lin Chun, do they have the image crystal? Lin Chun pondered for a while and said in a deep voice, Zhang Haoyan definitely doesn't have it. Feng Ling Er also didn't have it before. But we can't rule out the possibility that before leaving Yan City, the Martial King Hallmaster gave her one to facilitate communication. Xuan stared at Qin Feiyong, his eyes flickering. He really couldn't tell if this was true or if Qin Feiyong was just scaring him. Qin Feiyong sneered secretly. With a thought, Feng Ling Er appeared out of thin air. Immediately, Feng Ling Er pointed at Qin Feiyong's nose and scolded him. What's wrong with you? How could you let such an important thing slip? If they run away, won't our plan to catch them all in one fell swoop be in vain? Why are you so unreliable? While Feng Ling Er was scolding him, Qin Feiyong was also anxiously winking at Feng Ling Er and glancing at Xuan and Lin Chun from time to time. It was as if he was telling Feng Ling Er to lower her voice and not let them hear her. After Feng Ling Er finished speaking, she glanced at Xuan and Lin Chun from the corner of her eyes and shouted at Qin Feiyong. What are you doing? Is there something wrong with your eyes? Do you believe that I'll dig them out for you? Oh my God. I did let it slip just now, but I've already told them that we don't have the image crystal, and they almost believed me. But now that you've shouted, we can't hide it anymore, can we? Qin Feiyong looked helpless. Ah, Feng Ling Er exclaimed and hurriedly turned to look at Xuan and Lin Chun. She waved her hand and said, I was talking nonsense just now, we really don't have the image crystal, don't worry. Yes, we're just talking nonsense. Qin Feiyong nodded repeatedly and pulled Feng Ling Er into the castle. After entering the castle, both of them laughed sinisterly. Qin Feiyong said, I didn't know that you're so good at acting. Feng Ling Er was like a proud little princess, Of course, I'm proficient in all kinds of martial arts. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. This person really can't stand the compliment. She's so arrogant after being praised. Feng Ling'er asked, "Do you think they'll be fooled?" "They should be. After all, our acting just now was flawless," Qin Feiyong said, and then listened carefully to the movements outside. At this moment, Lin Chen's face was pale and his body and mind were trembling. He looked at Xuan in horror and asked, "Master, what should we do now? We'll be dead when Prince Yan and the others arrive." "Why are you panicking?" Xuan shouted coldly, but his heart was in a mess. Although he was now an 8-star combat emperor, he didn't have much confidence in facing the giants of Yan City, unless he broke through to the 9-star combat emperor, but it was unrealistic in a short period of time. Lin Chan said anxiously, "Master, Feng Ling'er must have the image crystal. Let's go quickly." "Let me think about it." Xuan lowered his head and fell into deep thought. This guy came out and said something ruthless. He was so confident that he didn't seem to be lying. Later, he let it slip and immediately denied it. In the end, Feng Ling'er appeared and scolded him without saying a word. Her expression didn't show any signs of faking it. "It seems like it's true." No. Before he stepped into the 9-star combat emperor, he must not fight with Prince Yan and the other 4 old dogs. He looked up at Lin Chan and said in a deep voice, "Where there's life, there's hope. Let's retreat first." Good. Lin Chan nodded happily. He was waiting for this moment. Suddenly, he frowned and asked, "What about the nether demonic flame?" Xuan sneered. "Let him keep it for now. I'll get it back sooner or later anyway." "What about the 3 of them?" Lin Chan looked at Ling Yunfei and the other 2. Xuan glanced at the 3 of them and said, "I'm planning to recruit people. The 3 of them have good aptitudes, so I'll keep them as my servants." After saying that, he grabbed Lin Chan with one hand and the iron chain with the other and flew into the sky. At this moment, Qin Feiyong appeared again with the Chang Shui in his hand. He stomped on the ground and with the help of the force, he jumped more than 10 meters high and came to the side of the iron chain. Then, he waved the Chang Shui in his hand. With a loud clang, the iron chain broke on the spot. Then, he quickly reached out and grabbed the iron chain. In an instant, he disappeared without a trace. Xuan and Xuan were dumbfounded by the sudden turn of events. How is this possible? This iron chain is made of black meteoric iron. Even I have to use all my strength to break it. But he actually broke it with one slash. Am I dreaming? Xuan looked down at the iron chain in his hand and muttered to himself. His heart was filled with disbelief. All of a sudden, his body shook and his eyes shone brightly. That dagger was definitely a divine weapon. "Zhang Haoyan, wait for me. I'll definitely go to Yin City to find you," he muttered to himself. Then with Lin Chan in tow, he soared into the air and quickly rushed out of the inner space. Boom! After a while, on the peak of the mountain, there was a loud noise that shook the sky and the earth. Eagle Claw Peak suddenly shook violently. Cracks like a spider web quickly spread across the entire mountain. This was obviously the sign of a landslide. Chapter 121. Hearing the commotion, Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and led Feng Ling'er, Ling Yunfei, and the others out of the castle. When they saw the Eagle Claw Peak about to collapse, their faces suddenly changed. Qin Feiyong waved the Chang Shui, and the iron chains binding Ling Yunfei and the others immediately broke. "Hurry up and escape or we'll all be buried alive," Feng Ling'er said anxiously. Lu Hong asked, "Where's Chening and Su Jian? They're already dead, why care about them? Let's go." Feng Ling'er took the lead and ran to the front of the stone wall, preparing to climb up. Qin Feiyong grabbed her shoulder and shook his head. "It's too late to climb up. Let's directly blast open a passage." "That's right." Feng Ling'er nodded, her jade-like hands clenched into fists, crazily bombarding the stone wall. A passage quickly appeared. "Let's go." Qin Feiyong waved his hand and led Ling Yunfei and the others into the passage, following closely behind Feng Ling'er. Qin Feiyong also grabbed the Chang Shui and helped at the side. Fatso roared, "It's collapsing faster. Why don't you do it?" Feng Ling'er said angrily, "I'm not as fast as you." Fatso smiled embarrassedly. "Then shut up, don't talk nonsense." Barbarian elephant fist. She roared and used a perfect martial art, blasting all the way down like a hot knife through butter. Every punch could blast a dozen meters deep. A dozen breaths passed. Finally, a hole was blasted open in front. The group hurriedly ran out, looked up, and were scared out of their wits. The entire eagle claw peak was collapsing. Gravel, soil, trees, and weeds turned into a shocking torrent, rolling from above. Hurry, hurry, hurry! Qin Feiyong roared. The 5 people fled outside as if their lives depended on it. They had really used all of their strength to fight. The flood behind them was also chasing after them relentlessly. It was trying to devour them. At this moment, not only were they fleeing, but the ferocious beasts were also fleeing. They were densely packed and their roars shook the heavens. It was a spectacular sight. However, ferocious beasts were constantly swallowed by the torrent and buried alive. Feng Ling'er urged Fatso Lu Hong, hurry up. Feng Ling'er was a 2-star martial ancestor, so her speed was naturally very fast. Although Qin Feiyong and Ling Yunfei were 5-star martial masters, they both had auxiliary divine abilities. Only Fatso and Lu Hong were the slowest. The torrent was closing in step by step. The situation was not good. Feng Ling'er hurriedly retreated. She grabbed one person in each hand and dragged them along as she ran. Several dozen breaths later, the 5 of them stopped on a small hillside and looked back at the half-collapsed eagle claw peak. Their hearts filled with shock. The rumbling sound was like thunder, deafening. The thick dust and smoke covered half of the sky. No one knew how many ferocious beasts would be buried under the soil. It was really thrilling just now. Fatso patted his chest, still in shock. If it were not for Feng Ling'er's help, he would have been buried alive. Hey, why don't I see that falcon? Ling Yunfei was surprised. It should have been subdued by Zuan long ago. Qin Feiyong said. Oh no, we are surrounded by them. Feng Ling'er suddenly exclaimed. Her face was ashen. In the surrounding forest, several huge ferocious beasts were closing in on the 5 of them step by step. They were the Black Panther and other ferocious beasts that they had encountered before. Fatso said in horror, what should we do now? Sister-in-law's strength alone is not their opponent at all. Sister-in-law? Qin Feiyong and the others were stunned. Feng Ling'er said angrily, damn Fatso, if you talk nonsense again, I will seal your mouth. Fatso said with a sad face, sister-in-law, if you can get rid of them, not to mention sealing my mouth, even if you spank me I don't mind. I mind. Feng Ling'er gritted her teeth and glared at him. Zhang Haotian, give me that dagger of yours. No need, I have a way. Qin Feiyong said lightly. With a thought, the black wolf appeared. He looked at the black wolf and asked, Brother Wolf, can you ask them to let us go? The black wolf looked up at him, turned to the Black Panther and other ferocious beasts and growled. The Black Panther and other ferocious beasts stopped and growled as if they were talking to the black wolf. A moment later, the Black Panther and other ferocious beasts gathered together, turned around and ran away, quickly disappearing from their sight. The black wolf also took a step, ready to follow. Qin Feiyong hurriedly said, Brother Wolf, why don't you be my companion too? After spending so much time with the Wolf King, he had an inexplicable good impression of wolves. The black wolf turned to look at him, but in the end, it did not stay and ran into the depths of the forest. Sigh. Qin Feiyong sighed, feeling rather disappointed. It seemed that it was not easy to make a ferocious beast follow a person willingly. When he looked at Feng Ling'er and the others, he found that they were looking at him strangely. What's wrong? Qin Feiyong was stunned and asked in confusion. Feng Ling'er said, if I remember correctly, there was a white wolf in the place where we were hiding. Why are you so close to the wolf? Has she already guessed it? Qin Feiyong's heart skipped a beat. Ling Yunfei also squinted his eyes, which emitted a cold light. He knew Qin Feiyong's true identity, and he knew what it meant if Qin Feiyong's identity was exposed. Therefore, he could only silence him. Noticing the change in Ling Yunfei, Qin Feiyong glanced at him, motioning him not to be impulsive, and then smiled. Maybe it's because I'm popular with wolves. Is that so? Feng Ling'er narrowed her eyes and stared at him. Then what do you think it is? Qin Feiyong shrugged. At this time, Lu Hong frowned and said, I remember that Qin Feiyong, who is wanted by the royal family, also has a white wolf by his side? Feng Er's red lips curled up slightly. She pursed her lips into a meaningful smile and nodded. That's right. Speaking of which, this Qin Feiyong is truly amazing. He's already world-renowned at such a young age. Even in the Swallow City, there's no one who doesn't know his name. So powerful? Qin Feiyong was surprised. Isn't this nonsense? How can a person wanted by the royal family be an ordinary person? But then again, it is said that Qin Feiyong is only 15 or 16 years old, about the same age as Zhang Laoda. He also has a white wolf by his side. Coincidentally, this Qin Feiyong appeared in Black Bear City at the same time as you, Zhang Laoda. Moreover, Zhang Laoda, you have always been very mysterious, and your origin is unknown. Could it be that you are Qin Feiyong in disguise? Fatso followed his train of thought and slowly pondered this conclusion. As soon as his voice faded, everyone looked at Qin Feiyong in bewilderment. Ling Yunfei was naturally pretending. Damn Fatso, what are you blindly thinking about? Qin Feiyong secretly cursed, but although Fatso was timid, his mind was really not simple. How can I be Qin Feiyong? If it was true, I wouldn't have saved you in the Eagle Claw Peak. As for the White Wolf, the world is so big and there are so many strange things. Qin Feiyong is not the only one who can be friends with a wolf. Qin Feiyong said with a calm smile. Fatso nodded and said, it seems to make sense. Then why did you hide the White Wolf? Qin Feiyong said, nonsense, Qin Feiyong is wanted by the royal family. If I don't hide it, I don't know how many people will mistake me for Qin Feiyong like you. At that time, even if I have 10 mouths, I can't explain it clearly. Boss Jiang, don't say that you're not Qin Feiyong. Even if you are, Grandpa Fatty will continue to worship you. Fatso said with a smile. Don't flatter me, I'm not a vain person, I won't fall for it. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him. Feng Ling'er stared at Qin Feiyong, her eyes flashed and said with a smile, okay, let's find a place to rest for the night. We will set off for Yen City tomorrow morning. The 5 of them walked side by side in the jungle. Qin Feiyong also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what, he finally fooled them. Half an hour later, they came to a lake. Ling Yunfei dived into the lake, caught 2 big fish and grilled them. After a simple meal, Fatso, Lu Hong, and Feng Ling'er took a healing pill, sat cross-legged beside the fire, and closed their eyes to rest. Qin Feiyong walked to the riverside dozens of meters away, sat on a stone, and looked at the calm lake without saying a word. What are you thinking about? Ling Yunfei walked over, sat beside him and asked. Qin Feiyong sighed. I'm thinking about Uncle Yuan. I don't know where he is now. And if he's okay? Uncle Yuan? Ling Yunfei was puzzled. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. He is a very kind and amiable old man. For the past 5 years, he has taken care of me meticulously. In this world, other than my mother, the only one I care about is him. Ling Yunfei comforted. Good people will be rewarded. Yes, he is a good person. Qin Feiyong nodded. What about your father? Why haven't I heard you mention him? Ling Yunfei asked. Crack. Qin Feiyong's hands suddenly clenched. His dark eyes turned blood red in an instant. It was full of hatred and pain. There was even a hint of killing intent. What's wrong? Ling Yunfei was shocked. At this moment, Qin Feiyong seemed to be possessed by an azura in his eyes, and the murderous aura emitted from his body was extremely shocking. In the future, don't mention my father in front of me. Otherwise, even if it's you, I won't be polite. Qin Feiyong said word by word, and his words were cold and piercing to the bone. After saying that, the bloody light in his eyes quickly receded. After a while, it returned to its previous appearance. Yes, Ling Yunfei nodded, but in his heart he was very surprised. Chapter 122. What are you guys whispering about? Feng Ling'er's voice suddenly came from behind. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and turned around, only to see Feng Ling'er getting up and walking towards them. Ling Yunfei said in a low voice, this woman is very scheming. She's not as easy to fool as Lu Hong and Fatso. You must be careful. Qin Feiyong said, Fatso is not that easy to fool. He's probably just pretending. Him. There was a trace of disdain in Ling Yunfei's eyes. You haven't spent much time with him, so you don't know him. Although he's timid, he's not stupid. In short, don't underestimate him. Qin Feiyang warned. Ling Yunfei's pupils contracted. Since Qin Feiyang gave him such a high evaluation, it seemed that he had to pay attention to Fatso in the future. Feng Ling Er came to the two. Ling Yunfei got up and said respectfully, "Senior sister Ling Er, I thought you were ugly, so I covered your face with a mask, but I didn't expect you to be so beautiful. It's amazing." Feng Ling Er's face was cold. "Don't flatter me. You knew Jiang Haoyan's true identity, but you colluded with him and deceived him. This is a serious crime, do you understand?" "What do you mean? Why can't I understand?" Ling Yunfei's heart skipped a beat, and he looked puzzled. "Still pretending? Don't think I didn't notice the killing intent you showed when we guessed that Jiang Haoyan was Qin Feiyang." Feng Ling Er sneered. Qin Feiyang got up and looked at her. "What do you want?" Since he couldn't hide it, there was no need to continue pretending. Feng Ling Er shook her head and said, "If I wanted to do anything, I would have already done it to you. Don't worry, I will pretend that I don't know anything about this matter." It was not because of how charming Qin Feiyang was. It was because Qin Feiyang had saved her in the Eagle Claw Peak. Otherwise, she would have already been violated by Lin Chan and lost her virginity. To a woman, nothing was more important than this. Ugh! Qin Feiyang and Li Mu, who did not know the reason, were astonished. However, now that Feng Ling Er had agreed to keep it a secret, they could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Qin Feiyang asked, "Miss Ling Er, have you heard of a person named Linny in Yen City?" "Linny?" Feng Ling Er pondered for a moment and nodded. "Yes, it is said that she is from a branch of the Lin family. Lin Han is preparing to adopt her as his daughter. There are also rumors that when she turns 16, she will be officially married to the royal family." "Why are you suddenly asking about her? Do you know her?" Feng Ling Er was puzzled. Qin Feiyang nodded with a firm light in his eyes. No matter what, he must rescue Linny. This was a promise. It was the love of a brother to his sister. Feng Ling Er asked curiously, "Qin Feiyang, how did you become enemies with the king of Yen?" "I didn't become enemies with the king of Yen." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Then why is he looking for you?" Feng Ling Er frowned. Qin Feiyang said, "I became enemies with the Lin family of Yen City. When I was in Iron Bull Town, Linny's hometown, I killed Lin Han's youngest son, Lin Bailey." "What?" Feng Ling Er and Ling Yunfei looked at each other. Their eyes were full of disbelief. "He even dared to kill the people of the Lin family of Yen City. Isn't this bastard too timid? Tell me about it." Feng Ling Er suddenly became interested. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Why are you so gossipy?" Feng Ling Er snorted coldly and threatened, "If you don't say it, I will announce your true identity." Qin Feiyang was helpless. He briefly recounted what had happened in Iron Ox Town, but he did not mention the relationship with Luo Qingzhu and her daughter, as well as Zhao Shuang'er and Uncle Yuan. After listening, Feng Ling Er suddenly realized and said angrily, "This Lin family is really too much. Do they think that they can cover the sky in the county of Yen just because they are close to the royal family? I can't stand such pretentious people the most. It can't be helped. This is the way of the world. People with power and influence are not afraid of anything. It is difficult for people without money and influence to keep their dignity as a human being." Qin Feiyang shook his head and sneered. Ling Yunfei said, "But the person who suffered the most in this incident is Lin Yi's father. Not only did he not get any benefits, but he also lost a daughter." Qin Feiyang said, "He is trapped in a cocoon of his own making. He had no sympathy for Lin Chong at all, because this person was not worthy of sympathy at all." Feng Ling Er said, "So, your biggest purpose of going to Yen City is to save Lin Yi?" "Sort of." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Only he knew that his real purpose was to go home. Also, he wanted to uproot the Lin family of Yen City. Feng Ling Er shook her head and said, "I'm afraid this is difficult. The Lin family of Yen City has the royal family behind them. In addition, the Lin family itself has the War Emperor. Even the Danwang Hall, Martial Emperor Hall, and Treasure Pavilion have to be polite to the Lin family. With your strength alone, the hope is slim." Qin Feiyang said, "Let's talk about it after we go to Yen City." Feng Ling Er suddenly said, "I have an idea." "What idea?" Qin Feiyang and the other man looked at her suspiciously. Feng Ling Er joked, You can propose marriage to Lin Yi first. With your alchemy talent, the Lin family will probably agree without hesitation. Good idea. A person who can refine the best quality medicinal pill, as long as he doesn't die prematurely, his future value will definitely far exceed that of the royal family. The Lin family can't wait to curry favor with you. Ling Yunfei nodded in agreement. In his heart he was actually bitter. In the beginning, Qin Feiyang said that he wanted to refine the scarlet-colored glass pill by himself. Not only did he not believe it, but he also ridiculed him. Later, the news that Qin Feiyang refined the best quality medicinal pill quickly spread in Black Bear City. When he heard the news, he was dumbfounded on the spot. This guy is too heaven-defying. He is completely inhuman. This method won't work. Qin Feiyang shook his head. If this was the case, he could have eloped with Lin Yi in the beginning. Why bother? He only regarded Lin Yi as a sister, and there was no affection between men and women. He couldn't do such a thing as proposing marriage. Boom! All of a sudden, an earth-shattering explosion could be heard from a place far away. The three looked at each other and hurriedly looked over. Fatso and Lu Hong were also awakened and quickly ran toward Qin Feiyang and the other two. What happened? Fatso asked. We don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The sound came from the direction of Black Bear City. Ling Yunfei had a suspicious look on his face. Did something happen in Black Bear City? Do you want to go back and take a look? Feng Ling'er asked. Let's go and take a look. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and nodded. The group of 5 immediately turned back and ran wildly in the jungle. After 2 hours, the west gate of Black Bear City finally came into their sight. As soon as they saw the city gate, they felt uneasy. Usually, there were only 2 people guarding the city gate, but at this moment there were more than a dozen figures. There was usually no one on the city wall. But now there was a sentry every 3 steps and a sentry every 7 steps. It was stricter than when Qin Feiyang was sealed. This time, the sky was dark and the full moon was in the sky. The hazy moonlight spread down, and the mountains and rivers seemed to be covered with a layer of silver coat. Who is it? Seeing someone running over, the people guarding the city gate suddenly shouted, pulled out their swords and became vigilant. It's me, Jiang Haotian, Qin Feiyang said loudly. Jiang Haotian. Those people looked at each other, and their eyes were full of doubts. After a few people ran closer, it was indeed Jiang Haotian and others. A middle-aged man greeted them. It was Gu Ba. He asked, didn't you go to Yen City? Why did you come back? Qin Feiyang asked in bewilderment, Elder Gu, why are you personally standing guard here? Gu Ba said in a deep voice, 2 hours ago, our pill hall was attacked, and the alchemy fire was stolen. What? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other, and their eyes were full of shock. Someone dared to come and steal the alchemy fire of the pill hall? Who was so daring? That person came and went without a trace. We didn't even see his face, and, speaking of this, Gu Ba looked at Feng Ling'er and stopped talking. Feng Ling'er frowned. Elder Gu, what do you want to say? Gu Ba gritted his teeth, and said in a deep voice, your grandfather was also taken away. How did this happen? Feng Ling'er's face suddenly changed. We don't know either. Gu Ba shook his head. Snatched the alchemy fire. Snatched Elder Feng. Qin Feiyang muttered to himself, and his mind was thinking quickly. Suddenly, his eyes trembled, and he said in surprise, could it be Zuan? Fatso said in a deep voice, you and Fat Lord are thinking the same thing. It must be him. Not good. Ling Yunfei's face suddenly changed. He looked at Gu Ba and asked, what about my mother? Gu Ba said, I don't know about your mother, but she should be fine, because the martial arts hall didn't release any news about anyone being taken away. No, I have to go to the martial arts hall to take a look. I'll look for you later. Ling Yunfei said to Qin Feiyang and the others, and ran into the city without looking back. Qin Feiyang looked at Feng Ling'er, patted her shoulder, and comforted her. Don't worry, the nether devil flame is still in our hands. Zuan won't do anything to your grandfather for now. Feng Ling'er nodded and tears fell like rain. Qin Feiyang asked Elder Gu, where is the hall master? Gu Ba said, they are all in the conference hall. Qin Feiyang said, let's go to the pill hall. The 4 of them entered the city, and ran towards the pill hall. Dozens of breaths later, they ran into the conference hall with ease. Luo Xiong, Elder Mo, the martial arts hall master, the precious treasure pavilion master, and the Jiang clan head were sitting in the conference hall, discussing something. The atmosphere was very heavy. Seeing Qin Feiyong and the others suddenly running in, they were stunned at first, and then quickly stood up to welcome them. Luo Xiong asked, "Why are you back?" Qin Feiyong didn't beat around the bush, and said directly, "Hall master, we know who took away the alchemy fire in Elder Feng." "Who?" Luo Xiong said. "Zuan Linshan." Qin Feiyong said word by word. "Linshan? How could it be him?" Luo Xiong's eyes were filled with disbelief. Jiang clan head frowned and said, "Who is Zuan?" Elder Mo said in a deep voice, 8 years ago, there was an alchemist who risked universal condemnation to refine the blood spirit elixir, and was killed by King Yan outside the Yan city. This alchemist was Zuan. Chapter 123. He is not dead. Qin Feiyong said coldly. He has been hiding in the Eagle Claw Peak for the past 8 years, refining the blood demon pill. He is now an 8-star combat emperor. What? 8-star combat emperor? Luo Xiong and the others were shocked. What the hell is going on? Hurry up and tell us everything, the martial arts hall master said. However, Qin Feiyong frowned. If he said it, would Luo Xiong take the opportunity to ask him to hand over the nether devil flame? This matter can't be hidden, it's better to tell the truth. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyong murmured and told the story of the Eagle Claw Peak in detail. There is such a thing. Damn it. Ling Er, you are so silly. How could you bring them to such a dangerous place? I will inform the Grand Hall Master immediately. I will go too. The 3 of them were furious and left in a hurry. Zuan the devil was not dead. This was a big matter and could not be neglected. I want to be alone, Feng said as she turned around and walked out of the hall. Her frail figure looked particularly miserable. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and followed her. The 2 of them walked into a pavilion, one in front of the other. Feng sat on a stone bench. Tears gushed out and her face was full of self-blame. Qin Feiyong sighed and did not know how to comfort her. The current situation could be said to have been caused by Feng. If she did not bring everyone to the Eagle Claw Peak, nothing would have happened. If she had killed Lin Chan, Elder Feng would not have been taken away, because it was obvious that Lin Chan must have told Zuan that Feng Chang was Feng grandfather. That was why Zuan took him away. This was the consequence of being soft-hearted. Suddenly, Feng turned and threw herself into Qin Feiyong's arms and cried bitterly. Qin Feiyong didn't know what to do. In the end, he reached out his hand and patted her back. Don't worry. Nothing will happen. Feng said. Zuan is a devil. He's vicious and merciless. How can I not worry about him? Qin Feiyong sighed. Things have already come to this point. It's useless for you to worry. I really hate myself. Why didn't I just kill Lin Chan? Feng blamed herself. There will be opportunities in the future. Qin Feiyong smiled. Da-da. Along with the sound of footsteps, Ling Yunfei and Fatso ran over. Seeing the 2 hugging each other, they immediately turned their heads with an awkward expression. Feng's cheeks turned red. She quickly stood up and wiped her tears. She lowered her head and said, I feel much better. Thank you. Qin Feiyong smiled and turned to Ling Yunfei. He asked, how is your mother? Ling Yunfei nodded and said worriedly, but now I don't feel at ease. I let her continue to stay in Black Bear City. Qin Feiyong nodded. That's true. If Zuan finds out about your relationship with her, he will definitely do something to her. But Zuan is very resourceful. Unless you bring your mother to the Martial King Hall, no matter where she goes, it's not safe. Ling Yunfei's heart sank. He said, when the Chief Hall Master comes, I will plead with him. I hope he will agree. The martial arts Chief Hall Master is coming? Qin Feiyong was shocked. After such a big incident, he should come. Ling Yunfei frowned. He wasn't sure. So you are here. At this moment, Lu Hong ran over and said, the Hall Master wants you to go over. Let's go, Qin Feiyong said. The group quickly returned to the conference hall. Patriarch Zhang had also left. In the hall, Only Luo Xiong and Elder Mo were left. Qin Feiyang asked Hallmaster, "Is there anything you need from us?" Luo Xiong said, "The chief hallmaster wants you to go to Yen City immediately. Ling Yunfei, you too." "Why?" Feng Ling asked. Luo Xiong said, "Because the chief hallmaster is worried that Xuan may come back. At that time, none of you will be able to escape. As for your grandfather, the chief hallmaster said that he will not sit back and do nothing." Qin Feiyang frowned. "What about Xuan? Are we going to let him go?" Luo Xiong smiled. "Of course not, but Xuan is an 8-star combat emperor. Even if the chief hallmaster comes to Black Bear City, he may not be able to find him, so they plan to wait for him. After all, you took his alchemy fire. He will come to you sooner or later." Qin Feiyang said angrily, "Why didn't they report this to the state capital?" "The state capital?" Luo Xiong's pupil shrunk. He shook his head and said, "They have their own ideas. We are insignificant people and have no right to interfere. We just need to do as they say." Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. But then he sighed helplessly. There was a saying that the emperor was far away from the sky. Although the imperial power controlled everything, it only controlled the overall situation. Even the imperial power could not control some small things in the local area. "Let's go." Luo Xiong got up and said, "I will escort you to Yen City. Elder Mo, when I am not here, you will be in charge of everything in the hall." "Yes." Elder Mo nodded. Ling Yunfei hurriedly asked, "What about my mother?" Luo Xiong smiled. "Don't worry. We have already released fake news that your mother has been sent to Yen City. As long as she does not appear in front of others, Xuan will not come to Black Bear City even if he finds out about your relationship with her." Qin Feiyang nodded and said, "This move of throwing a brick to attract jade and deceiving everyone is a good idea." On the surface, Ling Yunfei's mother had gone to Yen City, but in fact she was still in the martial arts hall. In the future, if Xuan wanted to kidnap her, he would have to go to Yen City. Speaking of which, this was also a bait. Fatso patted Ling Yunfei's shoulder and said with a smile, "Brother, as long as we don't say anything, no one else will know about this. You should be relieved now, right?" Ling Yunfei nodded. A smile finally appeared on his face. The 5 of them followed Luo Xiong out of the conference hall. Luo Xiong stood at the door. He put his finger to his mouth and blew a loud whistle that spread into the distance. Chirp! Not long after, accompanied by a high-pitched chirp, a big black bird flapped its huge wings and flew across the sky. It was an eagle. Its wingspan was more than 10 meters, but there was no fierce aura around it. This was because this kind of eagle was specially bred for transportation. It was very dependent on humans. The eagle landed on the ground. Luo Xiong walked over and said with a smile, "Old friend, I'll have to trouble you again." Chirp! The eagle chirped softly and rubbed Luo Xiong's face with its huge beak. It looked very docile. "Let's go." Luo Xiong patted the eagle's head. He turned around and called out to Qin Feiyang and the others. Then, he jumped up and landed on the eagle's back. Fat Lord has never been treated like this before. Fatso ran over and jumped on the eagle's back. He touched the soft feathers excitedly. After Qin Feiyang and the others got on, the eagle let out a sharp chirp and soared into the sky. Riding on the eagle, they soared into the sky. Ling Yunfei and Lu Hong were also very excited. Fatso was even more excited. Only Qin Feiyang and Feng Ling were normal. Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Hong in front of him. His eyes flickered. Suddenly, he leaned over and whispered in her ear, "There's something I want to tell you." "What is it?" Lu Hong was puzzled. The 2 of them were next to each other. As long as they were not too loud, Luo Xiong, who was standing at the front, would not hear them. Qin Feiyang said, "You were there at the Eagle Claw Peak. Xuan will definitely not let you go. I believe you should know this." Lu Hong nodded. Qin Feiyang sighed. "I'm really worried that others will mistake me for Qin Feiyang. So as long as you don't tell anyone about the White Wolf, we will be friends in the future. We will support and help each other. What do you think?" "Really?" Lu Hong's eyes lit up. This person's future was limitless. If she could really become friends with him, she would definitely get a lot of benefits in the future. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Of course." Lu Hong said, "Okay, I will definitely keep this secret. In fact, these days she had been thinking about how to bury the hatchet with this person. Now the opportunity had come to her. Naturally, she could not miss it. Moreover, it was this person who saved her at the Eagle Claw Peak. Even if there were no additional conditions, she should help him. Lu Hong said again, if I don't tell, what about them? Qin Feiyang said with a smile, in addition to Fatso, I have already told Ling Yunfei and Feng Ling Er. Lu Hong was shocked. Ling Yunfei had a good relationship with this person. It was normal for him to help keep the secret. But Feng Ling Er was a proud daughter of heaven. Why would she help this person? This time, Fatso came over and said with a smile, when did you become so intimate? Aren't you afraid that sister-in-law will be jealous? Lu Hong blushed and quickly lowered her head. Don't talk nonsense. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. He pulled Fatso to his side and muttered a few words in his ear. When the fatty heard that, a glint flashed through his squinted eyes. He raised his head, looked at Qin Feiyang, and said in dissatisfaction, am I the kind of person who likes to gossip? Qin Feiyang smiled and patted Fatso's shoulder. He did not say anything else. He could already conclude that this damn Fatso definitely knew his true identity. It was just that he did not point it out. Time flew. In the middle of the night, a magnificent ancient city entered their line of sight. The ancient city covered hundreds of miles and was extremely huge. Layers of halls rose and fell. They were arranged in picturesque disorder and had an extraordinary aura. The four walls were like giant pythons, shining with a cold luster. An ancient aura rushed over and attacked everyone's vision. That's Yin City. Fatso gripped his fists tightly and his eyes shone brightly. Under the hazy moonlight, the city was like a wild ferocious beast lying on the ground, shocking everyone's hearts. Luo Xiong warned, you guys have to remember that Yin City is the capital of Yin County. Therefore, flying with beasts is absolutely forbidden here. With that said, he stepped on the ground gently and the eagle swooped down, landing on the plains in front of the city gates. The plains were dead silent in the middle of the night. The few of them jumped down from the eagle's back one after another. Luo Xiong patted the eagle on the shoulder and smiled. Old friend, go look for food in the nearby mountains first. Screech. The eagle spread its wings and soared into the skies. Follow me. Luo Xiong called out and turned towards the city gates. In Yin City, apart from flying with beasts, you can't fight in private, and even more so, you can't kill anyone. Ling Yunfei asked, what if someone provokes you again and again? Luo Xiong said, there's a martial arts arena in the city. You can fight however you want, but you have to have the ability to do so. If you're short of money, you can also go to the martial arts arena. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. Luo Xiong smiled. You'll know when you get there. Soon. The group arrived in front of the city gates. Two bold and powerful words were engraved on the city gates, releasing an astonishing aura. Yin City. Hallmaster Luo, please stop for inspection. There were two guards in front of the city gates. They wore black armor and iron helmets, each holding a 3-feet-long spear in their hands. They looked at the few of them expressionlessly with cold eyes. Feng Ling Er shouted, what's there to check? Get out of here. One of the guards said, Miss Ling Er, we're just doing our job. Please forgive us. The other guard said, after knowing that the Devil's One is not dead, King Yin immediately ordered that from now on, anyone who enters Yin City will be strictly interrogated. It's only right. Luo Xiong smiled. One of the guards took out a strange stone. It was shaped like an eye and was the size of a palm. It was simple and unadorned and looked extremely ordinary. But when he saw this stone, Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. Chapter 124. The Heaven's Eye Stone was a very magical stone. Once touched, all illusions would have nowhere to hide. For example, Qin Feiyang. If he touched the Heaven's Eye Stone, he would immediately return to his original appearance. In other words, at this moment he was facing the crisis of his identity being exposed. What should I do? Qin Feiyang's thoughts were running fast. If his identity was exposed here, unless he hid in the castle for the rest of his life, he would die. At the same time, Feng Ling Er and Ling Yunfei glanced at Qin Feiyang secretly, their hearts full of worry. Fatso's eyes were also flickering. Only Lu Hong and Luo Xiong did not have any abnormalities. The black armored guard said, I believe you should all know that this is the Heaven's Eye Stone. Put your hands on it one by one. Luo Xiong was the first to walk up and put his hand on it. 3 breaths passed. The Heaven's Eye Stone did not respond. The black armored guard said with a smile, Hall Master Luo, please forgive me for offending you just now. You can now enter the city. This is how it should be in times of emergency. Luo Xiong smiled and stepped aside. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, hurry up, don't waste time here. Ling Yunfei, Fatso, and Lu Hong were checked one after another. The Heaven's Eye Stone did not show any abnormalities. What should we do? Qin Feiyang stood aside looking calm on the surface, but he was anxious in his heart. Feng Ling Er did not move for a long time, thinking of a way. Luo Xiong urged Ling Er Haotian, hurry up. Feng Ling Er stepped forward and looked up at the black armored guard, her eyes full of anger. The black armored guard said, Miss Ling Er, please cooperate. Zuan is an old man. He can change his appearance but he can't become a woman, right? Feng Ling Er said angrily. The black armored guard nodded and said, you're right. Gender can't be changed, but we can't rule out that there are women among his subordinates. Feng Ling Er said, you mean I'm his subordinate? The black armored guard waved his hand and said, no, no, no. I'm saying that his subordinates might disguise themselves as you. Preposterous. Feng Ling Er was mad with anger. She waved her jade-like hand and slapped the Heaven's Eye Stone away. It hit the city wall and shattered on the spot. Feng Ling Er, you are defying the law. The black armored guard shouted furiously. You're insulting me. Feng Ling Er also shouted. Qin Feiyang secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Without the Heaven's Eye Stone, he didn't need to be inspected anymore. It was all thanks to this woman. His expression turned serious, and he was about to go up and persuade him. However, another black armored guard suddenly said, don't argue with her. I still have a Heaven's Eye Stone here. After saying that, he really took out a Heaven's Eye Stone. Qin Feiyang's footsteps froze. His heart, which had just calmed down, was once again in his throat. The black armored guard grabbed the Heaven's Eye Stone and looked at Feng Ling Er. He said in a deep voice, I'm warning you. Don't destroy this Heaven's Eye Stone again. Otherwise, I'll have to take you to the King of Yan. Crack. However, before he could finish his words, Feng Ling Er waved her hand and shattered the Heaven's Eye Stone. Come on. I'm just about to meet the King of Yan. I want to ask him. My grandfather is a citizen of the county of Yan and an elder of the Pill Hall. Now that Zuan has kidnapped my grandfather, as the king of the county of Yan, why hasn't he come to rescue him? Feng Ling Er shouted angrily. Tears flowed down her cheeks. She looked extremely miserable. Qin Feiyang hurried forward and comforted her. Don't cry. Your grandfather will be fine. Luo Xiong also hurried over and said to the 2 black armored guards, Ling Er's grandfather has been kidnapped. We don't know if he's dead or alive. It's inevitable for her to be emotional. Please forgive her. The 2 black armored guards looked at each other and frowned slightly. Tap tap. At this moment, steady and powerful footsteps could be heard coming from the city. It came from afar. After a while, a middle-aged man walked out from the city gate. He was about 1.8 meters tall and wore a purple gold robe. He had a square face and a majestic aura. It's him. Qin Feiyang clenched his fists tightly. The man was Lin Han. Greetings, Patriarch Lin. The 2 black armored guards bowed and greeted him. Luo Xiong also cupped his fists and said, Long time no see, Patriarch Lin. How have you been? Luo Xiong? Lin Han was surprised and said, I didn't expect you to send them here personally. Luo Xiong smiled and said, they're all future stars. Nothing can happen to them. Lin Han glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others and nodded. They're all good. Greetings, Lord Lin. Ling Yunfei and the others bowed. However, Qin Feiyang didn't. Feng Ling Er didn't either. Lin Han glanced at Qin Feiyang and turned to Luo Xiong. Since you've sent them here, you can go back. I'll send them to the Martial Imperial Hall and Danwang Hall. No. They don't come with good intentions. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. He cupped his fists and said, We're flattered that Patriarch Lin personally came to welcome us in the middle of the night, In fact, he was reminding Luo Xiong. There were so many people in the Lin family. Why would Lin Han, the patriarch of the family, come in person? And in the middle of the night? He could have sent someone else. Therefore, his motive was not pure. The people present weren't stupid. After being reminded by Qin Feiyang, they all became vigilant. Luo Xiong was also shocked. He smiled and said, Patriarch Lin, you're of noble status. How could I trouble you to send them personally? Let me do it. Lin Han glanced at Qin Feiyang again, a cold glint in his eyes as he said, such a big thing happened in Black Bear City. There must be a lot of things that need to be dealt with. Don't waste your time on them. Go back. Don't tell me you still don't trust me? That's not it. It's mainly because the alchemy fire was stolen. A pill hall without alchemy fire is not a pill hall. I came to Yin City for 2 reasons. First, to escort them. Second, to ask the Grand Hall Master to give me alchemy fire. I'm going to the Danwang Hall anyway. I won't trouble you. Luo Xiong smiled and said politely, I'll tell the Grand Hall Master about the alchemy fire. Please go back. Lin Han's tone became a little harsh. Obviously, he had lost his patience. Since when did the Lin family have the right to interfere with the matters of the Danwang Hall? You're meddling in the matters of the Martial Imperial Hall. You're meddling too much. At this moment, 2 hoarse voices with a trace of coldness could be heard. Whoosh! 2 white-haired old men quickly flew out of the city and stopped in front of Lin Han. Elder Wan. Feng Ling Air immediately ran to the old man on the left. Her face was full of grievances. Elder Wan smiled and said, Ling Air, I already know about your grandfather's situation. Don't worry, we'll find a way to save him. Okay. Feng Ling Er nodded. She pointed at the 2 black armored guards and said angrily, just now, they actually suspected that I'm Zhua An's lackey. This is an insult to my character. Elder Wan, you have to uphold justice for me. What? Elder Wan stared at the 2 guards and shouted, how dare you slander the core disciples of the Martial Imperial Hall? Do you want to die? Elder Wan, this is a misunderstanding. Yes, we just want to confirm Miss Ling Air's identity. We don't mean anything else. The 2 black armored guards hurriedly explained. Don't you know that her grandfather has been kidnapped by Zhuan? What you're doing is no different from adding fuel to the fire. If it was me, I would have killed all of you on the spot. Elder Wan shouted. The guard nodded and said, yes, we're wrong. But this is King Yan's order. Before he could finish, Elder Wan sneered and said, don't use King Yan to pressure me. The royal family has no right to interfere with the disciples of the Martial Imperial Hall. The 2 black armored guards looked at each other helplessly. They took 2 steps back and lowered their heads. Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang was shocked. It seemed that Feng Ling Air's position in the Martial Imperial Hall was not ordinary. Luo Xiong heaved a sigh of relief and went forward with a smile. Old Wan, Old He, your old friend is here. Why didn't you say hello? Have you forgotten about me? Haha, how dare we forget about you? Old friend, when we're done, let's go and have a few drinks. The 2 of them laughed. It was obvious that the 3 of them had a good relationship. I don't have time to drink with you now. Luo Xiong shook his head and sighed deeply. He waved at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, come over here. Let me introduce you. Qin Feiyang and the others immediately ran over. After Luo Xiong's introduction, they then found out that Elder Wan was the enforcement elder of the Martial Imperial Hall. Elder, he was the enforcement elder of the Danwang Hall. The enforcement elder's position was second only to the 2 Grand Hall Masters. They had absolute power. For example, Feng Chang and Elder Mo were the enforcement elders of the Black Bear City's Pill Hall. Their positions were much higher than the enforcement elders. Of course, Feng Chang and Elder Mo's strength could not be compared to these 2. Even though Luo Xiong was very familiar with the 2 of them, the difference in their cultivation was like heaven and earth. They were on completely different levels. It could be said that in the entire county of Yan, these 2 were the most important people. They did not dare to neglect such important people. They quickly bowed. Not bad. All of you are good seedlings. Elder Wan glanced at them and smiled with satisfaction. Elder He nodded. He looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Zhang Haoyan, I heard that you can refine supreme grade pills? Hearing this, Elder Wan, Lin Han and the two black armored guards looked at Qin Feiyong. He's the center of attention again. Ling Yunfei and Fatso looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly. There was really no comparison between people. Qin Feiyong glanced at them and scratched his head. He looked at Elder He and said with an embarrassed smile, "If this disciple says no, will Elder beat me up?" Elder He was stunned. He then shook his head and laughed. This kid was quite interesting. His face turned cold and said, "If you can't, I won't beat you up. But I will kill you." Qin Feiyong exclaimed and nodded. "If that's the case, I'll admit it. I can refine supreme grade pills." "Well done. Fat Lord gives you full marks." Fatso chuckled. Elder He's face darkened and said, "Kid, it's a good thing that you can refine supreme grade pills. Why do you look so unwilling?" "I want to keep a low profile." Qin Feiyong looked helpless. Low profile? Chapter 125. Elder He said, "Let's not waste any more time. Let's go to the Danwang Hall." After taking a few steps, he suddenly stopped and turned to look at Lin Han. He sneered, "Since you care so much about our disciple, do you want to go to the Danwang Hall and have a cup of tea with me?" "Humph." Lin Han snorted and took the lead to enter the city gate, disappearing at the end of the street. What a hypocrite. Elder He and Elder Wan looked at each other with a hint of mockery in their eyes. They walked into the city side by side. Qin Feiyong and the others quickly followed. Seeing this, the two black armored guards wanted to say something but stopped. They wanted to say that Zhang Haoyan had not been checked yet. But when they thought of Elder Wan and Elder He's attitude, they did not dare to say it. The two thought about it and gave up. After all, not everyone could refine a superior grade medicinal pill. There should be no problem with this person's identity. It was rare for old friends to meet, so they naturally had a lot to talk about. Therefore, Luo Xiong, Elder Wan and Elder He walked at the front talking and laughing. Qin Feiyong looked at the three of them and took a step forward, landing beside Feng Ling Air. He said in a low voice, "Thank you." Feng Ling Air said, "This is the last time I'll help you. From now on, we don't owe each other anything." Fatso came up and laughed. "Sister-in-law, are you going to divorce Zhang Lauda?" The two of them immediately glared at Fatso. Ling Yunfei said helplessly, "I said Fatso is dead. I won't say anything. Can you keep quiet?" "Did Fat Lord say anything wrong?" Fatso looked innocent. Ling Yunfei said angrily, "Nonsense. Didn't you see them hugging each other in the pill hall? This means that their relationship is as deep as the sea. How can sister-in-law divorce him?" "That's true." Fatso nodded. Qin Feiyong was helpless. Even Ling Yunfei joined in the commotion. It seemed that it would be difficult to explain this matter clearly. Elder He suddenly turned his head and looked at Qin Feiyong. "I heard from Luo Xiong that you are very smart?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. He waved his hand and said, "You flatter me, Hall Master is too kind." Elder He said, "Let's not talk about these empty words. Let me ask you, why did Lin Han come to intercept you?" Fatso immediately raised his hand and roared, "Fat Lord knows." No, I know." Elder He frowned slightly and shifted his gaze to Fatso. He asked with interest, "Tell me about it." "Lin Han intercepted us for two reasons. First place, Lin Chan. Second, the Netherworld Devil Flame." Fatso tidied his hair and said seriously, "Not bad." Elder He was surprised and asked, "What's your name?" Fatso's face twitched. "Didn't Hallmaster introduce me just now?" "Ahem." Elder He coughed and said awkwardly, "I didn't remember just now. I think you're too lazy to remember." Fatso grumbled in dissatisfaction. He felt wronged and said, "Disciple is Situ Tianyu." Elder He nodded. Not bad, not bad. I will arrange a slightly easier chores for you." "Thank you for your care, Elder." Fatso quickly bowed and thanked him. He was so grateful that he shed tears. However, he was extremely disdainful. No matter how easy it was, wasn't it still a chores? Chores? Qin Feiyong was stunned and then came to a realization. Qin Wentian had almost forgotten that for the other two slots, they still had to work as odd job workers in the Pill Emperor Hall for a year before they could officially concoct pills. Qin Feiyong patted Ling Yunfei's shoulder and smiled. Do you still dare to look down on him? Ling Yunfei shook his head and smiled bitterly. Fatso's brain wasn't simple. The saying great wisdom appears to be stupidity was probably used to describe people like him. Yin City was divided into 4 districts: East District, South District, North District and West District. The Royal Palace was located in the East District. The Danwang Hall was located in the South District. The Martial Imperial Hall was located in the North District. The Precious Treasure Pavilion was located in the West District. The 4 major forces each guarded 1 district. Therefore, Qin Feiyong parted ways with Feng Ling and Ling Yunfei not long after. One is in the South District and the other is in the North District. They are more than 100 li apart. Zhang Laoda, if you miss sister-in-law and want to date her in the future, you'll have to run. Fatso said with a sneaky smile. Why do you talk so much nonsense? Qin Feiyong glared at him fiercely. However, Fatso's words reminded him of something. The distance between the 2 halls was too far. With his current speed, it would take him half a day even if he didn't stop and rest. A round trip would take him an entire day. He couldn't afford to waste time. It seemed like besides copying the return formula, the most important thing right now was to earn some gold coins and buy a few image crystals. With the image crystals, it would be much more convenient to contact Ling Yunfei. However, the price of the image crystals gave him a headache. At this moment, Elder He asked Brother Luo Zuan attacked the Dan Hall. Other than Feng Cheng, did anyone else get hurt? No. Luo Xiong shook his head and said, looking at the situation, he's still afraid of angering us. When he becomes a 9-star combat emperor, he won't be afraid of us. We'll be afraid of him. Elder He's face was filled with worry. You guys are too slow. I'll bring you guys to fly. He waved his hand, and his battle chi emerged, forming a 3-meter wide barrier that covered everyone. Next, the barrier carried them up into the sky like lightning in the night sky, and they quickly flew towards the Danwang Hall. In less than 100 breaths, a tall stone door entered their line of sight. The stone door was more than 10 meters tall. It was completely black and emitted an ancient aura. On top of it, the 3 big words Danwang Hall were written with iron hooks and silver strokes. The strokes were vigorous and imposing. Behind the stone door there were groups of palaces. The lowest one was more than 10 meters tall, and the highest one was 50 to 60 meters tall. It was a magnificent sight to behold. Beside the stone door, there was a big hall that was more than 10 meters tall. It had white walls and black glazed roof tiles. It looked simple and unadorned, but it had a solemn aura. On the door there were 3 big words. Reception Hall. Under the lead of Elder He, they entered the hall. A middle-aged man in white immediately came forward and cupped his hands. Greetings, Elder He. Elder He nodded. He moved closer to the middle-aged man's ear and whispered a few words. Then, he left the reception hall with Luo Xiong. The middle-aged man looked at the 3 of them and smiled faintly. My name is Wang Yu. I'm the deacon elder of the Danwang Hall. You can call me Elder Wang or Old Wang. Greetings, Elder Wang. Qin Feiyong and the other 2 bowed. As for calling him Old Wang, it was just a formality. If they really called him that, he would definitely feel uncomfortable. Give me your Dan Hall's identity token. I'll exchange it for the Danwang Hall's identity token for you. Wang Yu led the 3 of them to a workstation at the side. After changing the identity token, Wang Yu said, Lu Hong, from today onwards, you will stay here as my assistant and receive guests who come to visit. During this period, without my permission, you are not allowed to refine pills in private. The limit is 1 year. Yes. Lu Hong bowed and replied. As an alchemist, there was nothing more painful than not being able to refine pills. However, no matter how unwilling she was, she could only hide it in her heart. Moreover, receiving guests was better than being sent to clean up the place. Wang Yu then looked at Fatso and said, Situ Chanyu, you are in charge of taking care of the herb field. Remember, you are not allowed to cheat, and you are not allowed to embezzle anything. If you are caught, you will be kicked out of the Danwang Hall and will never be hired again. Take care of the herb field? Fatso was stunned. He was overjoyed. This was a lucrative job. He patted his chest and said confidently, Elder, don't worry. Fat Lord will definitely be loyal to his duty and protect every plant in the herb field. Fat Lord? Wang Yu frowned slightly and said, You should change this habit of yours as soon as possible. Otherwise, sooner or later, you will be in big trouble. Fatso scratched his head and said with an embarrassed smile, Fat Lord. No, I understand. I will definitely change. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. Fatso's habit had long been ingrained in his bones. It would be difficult to change it. Wang Yu looked at Lu Hong and said, You stay here and watch. I will bring them over. Yes. Lu Hong nodded and looked at Qin Feiyong enviously. Although Wang Yu had not arranged for Qin Feiyong's whereabouts, she could imagine that he would definitely be well taken care of. Follow me. Wang Yu called out to Qin Feiyong and Situ Tianyu, then turned and walked out of the hall. Qin Feiyong turned his head and looked at Lu Hong. He smiled faintly and said, Actually, you being here is also an opportunity, because you can usually come into contact with many important people. Perhaps in the future I will need to seek your help. Lu Hong was stunned. When Qin Feiyong said this, she really felt that this was a good job. Fatso smiled complacently, Smelly woman, if you need anything in the future, feel free to go to the medicine field to find Fat Lord. But don't come for physiological needs. Fat Lord can't take it. Originally, Lu Hong was quite touched. But when she heard the latter part, her face immediately darkened and she said angrily, Damn fat pig. I will skin you alive today. Fatso's complexion changed and he hurriedly slipped away. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. He also turned and walked out of the hall. After catching up to Fatso, he asked, Damn Fatso, is Lu Hong really as bad as you said? Fatso waved his hand, Not really. She is just a bit snobbish. Qin Feiyong said, So you are saying that she has an affair with Chang Yu and Jijin? Fatso laughed. It's all made up by Fat Lord. Although it would occasionally be a bit ambiguous, it can still be considered as a clean body. Qin Feiyong's face twitched. To a woman, nothing is more important than her purity. In the future, you can't casually insult others like this. Fatso thought for a moment and nodded, That's true. In the past, I was indeed a bit willful. I will find an opportunity to apologize to her. After bringing Fatso to the medicine field, Wang Yu led Qin Feiyong to the Danwang Hall's conference hall. Inside the hall there was no one. You wait here. Don't run around. Leaving behind this sentence, Wang Yu turned and left. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong frowned. Shouldn't he be bringing him to the pill refining room and residence first? Why did he come to the conference hall first? Furthermore, he left him here alone. Felt somewhat strange. Suddenly, a glint flashed across his eyes. Could it be because of the netherworld devil flame? Chapter 126. Tap tap. Finally, the sound of footsteps could be heard. Qin Feiyong turned to look at the door. Luo Xiong, elder he, and a dark-skinned old man walked into the hall. The dark-skinned old man was wearing a black robe. He had black hair, black breath and black skin. He looked like a piece of charcoal. Qin Feiyong looked at them one by one and found that Luo Xiong's expression was not good. The three of them sat on the chairs next to him. Luo Xiong said, Zhang Haoyan, let me introduce you to this old man with skin problems. His name is Jia He, and he is also the Danwang Hall's law-enforcing elder. Fake black? He's obviously real black. I just don't know if his heart is black or not. Qin Feiyong secretly sneered and cupped his hands. Greetings, Elder Jia. Jia He responded indifferently. There was no smile on his old face, and he looked incomparably cold. Elder, he said, Zhang Haoyan, do you know why we called you here? Qin Feiyong shook his head. Elder, he said, I'll be frank. We want the nether devil flame. As expected. Qin Feiyong narrowed his eyes. What was to come had finally come. Luo Xiong frowned and smiled. Haoyan, the nether devil flame has already recognized Xuan as its master. You can't control it. It will be troublesome if you keep it by your side. Why don't you give it to them? That's right. You know that Lin Han is already coveting the nether devil flame. Although he didn't succeed this time, there will definitely be a next time. It's not safe for you to keep it. Elder, he said. Qin Feiyong frowned. Elder, he continued, I know that you don't want to, but this is the Grand Hall Master's decision. As a disciple of the Danwang Hall, you should obey unconditionally. Of course we won't mistreat you. From now on, you can read all the recipes in the Danwang Hall. We will also arrange the best alchemy room for you. Furthermore, you will be promoted to a core disciple. Elder He offered one enticing condition after another. If it were anyone else, they would definitely agree without hesitation. But in Qin Feiyang's eyes, it was useless. He glanced at the three of them and said indifferently, with this disciple's talent in alchemy, it doesn't seem difficult to become a core disciple, obtain a good alchemy room, and look up those pill recipes. Elder He raised his eyebrows and was about to fly into a rage. Luo Xiong said, Old He, don't be in a hurry to get angry. Although Zhang Haoyan's words are a little arrogant, he does have the qualifications to do so. Jia He said expressionlessly, no matter how talented you are or how high your spiritual power is, without the Danwang Hall's nurturing, it will be difficult for you to achieve anything in the future. Qin Feiyang smiled. This was a blatant threat. If he didn't hand over the Nether Devil Flame today, the Danwang Hall would give up on him. Since it was already like this, he had nothing to worry about. I'll be honest. The Nether Devil Flame is something that I risked my life to obtain. Although I can't get it to recognize me as its master now, it's only a matter of time. So, it's impossible for me to hand it over. Qin Feiyang looked coldly at the three of them, his attitude unyielding. Jia He's old eyes flashed with a cold light. He said darkly, do you know the consequences of doing this? Don't threaten me. It's just leaving the Danwang Hall. Do you think that I can't live if I leave the Danwang Hall? Qin Feiyang met Jia He's gaze without fear. Don't regret it. Jia He said word by word. His tone was bone-chilling. Regret? Qin Feiyang sneered and said indifferently, then let's wait and see. We'll see who's the one who regrets it in the end. Good, very good. Congratulations, you've completely infuriated this elder. Jia He stood up abruptly. His aura surged as he pounced on Qin Feiyang. Congratulations to all of you for completely infuriating me. I don't want to stay in this rubbish place anymore. Qin Feiyang sneered as he turned around and walked outside. He originally thought that the people of the Danwang Hall would be as kind and reasonable as Luo Xiong, Feng Cheng, and Elder Emo from the Pill Hall, but obviously he was thinking too much. He didn't want to stay in a place like this, no matter how many benefits it gave him. My Danwang Hall is not a place where you can come and go as you please. Jia He was furious. How dare he call the Danwang Hall a rubbish place? He really didn't know his place. He took a step forward and instantly landed behind Qin Feiyang. His old hand reached out and grabbed Qin Feiyang's arm. Old man Jia, stop. Luo Xiong's expression changed as he hurriedly stood up and shouted. The severity of the situation had far exceeded his expectations. It's useless no matter who comes today. Jia He was furious. He couldn't hear him at all. He saw that Qin Feiyang was about to be captured by him. But suddenly, Qin Feiyang disappeared from the face of the earth without any warning. Jia He's eyes widened in disbelief. Elder He also stood up abruptly and scanned every corner of the hall. Luo Xiong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. His face was also filled with surprise. He was right in front of him a moment ago, but he disappeared without a trace in an instant. Where did this kid go? Whoosh! Qin Feiyang appeared out of thin air again and said indifferently, don't waste your time. You can't catch me. How is this possible? Jia He stared at Qin Feiyang without blinking. He couldn't believe it. He came without a shadow and left without a trace. Was this kid a ghost? Qin Feiyang looked up at Luo Xiong and said, Hallmaster, I just came out to ask you one thing. Do you also want the Nether Devil Flame? If I wanted it, I would have already made a move on you on the way here. Luo Xiong sighed deeply and advised Haoyan, leaving the Danwang Hall, you can't move an inch. Give them the Nether Devil Flame, just treat it as giving me face. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, I can agree to anything else, but not the Nether Devil Flame. Thank you for taking care of me these past few months. Also, help me thank Elder Emo. Finished. He looked at Elder He and Jia He. Danwang Hall, remember I Zhang Haoyan, will make you regret it for the rest of your life. Suddenly, he roared, his long hair fluttering, as if he was possessed by a demon god. It gave Jia He and Luo Xiong a great sense of oppression. The next moment, he disappeared again. His roar spread in all directions. Who knew how many people were alarmed? What happened? Why is Zhang Laoda so angry? Fatso stood in front of a medicinal field. Lu Hong also walked out of the reception hall and looked in the direction of the meeting hall. Her eyes were full of surprise. Shouldn't he be focused on training? Why did he turn hostile instead? Rebel, rebel. Jia He was mad with anger. His face was even darker than before. He glared at Luo Xiong and roared, "This is the person you brought? He is simply an uneducated bastard." Swish. This time, Qin Feiyang appeared again. However, at this moment he was like a ferocious beast staring at Jia He. His eyes were as if they were dyed with blood red. Originally, he did not plan to show his face and concentrate on copying the Huan character formula. But he did not expect that Jia He would actually scold him outside. If it was any other scolding, he would not care. But the words uneducated bastard and bastard were absolutely intolerable. Jia He, listen to me clearly. Sooner or later, there will be a day when I will kill you with my own hands. He smiled sinisterly and disappeared again. But those cold and ferocious words echoed in the hall for a long time, filled with an incomparably strong murderous intent. Come on, if you have the guts, come and kill me now. Jia He roared, bristling with anger. Enough. Luo Xiong suddenly roared. You dare to yell at me? Jia He turned to look at him, his old eyes cold and piercing. Previously in front of the chief palace master, I have been opposing because I know his character too well. He will definitely fall out. Moreover, he snatched the nether devil flame with his own ability. Why should we ask him to hand it over? If we do this, what is the difference between us and bandits? However, you did not listen and insisted that he hand over the nether devil flame. Now it's good. A level 9 mental energy genius, a monster who can refine top-grade pills, was angered away by you. Are you satisfied with this result? Forget it, I don't care anymore. Anyway, I have done my duty. What will happen in the end has nothing to do with me. After taking the pill fire, I will return to Black Bear City. After Luo Xiong finished speaking, he flicked his sleeves and left. Sigh. Elder, he sighed. Perhaps this time we have really done wrong. Let's go and see the chief palace master and ask his opinion. Jia He swept his gaze across the hall, filled with anger, and left with Elder He. Inside the ancient castle, Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and clenched his fists so tightly that his hands were dripping blood. Wolf King at the side watched anxiously. After an unknown period of time, he finally opened his eyes and looked at Wolf King. White-eyed Wolf, do you want to know my true identity? Wolf King said, if you want to say it, Brother Wolf will listen. If you don't say it, Brother Wolf won't ask. Qin Feiyang said, actually, I am really a prince of the Great Qin Empire. Wolf King's huge body trembled, and his eyes also shone brightly. Among all the princes, I am ranked 14th. So in the imperial capital, I am called the 14th prince. At that time my talent was extraordinary. At the age of 10, I had already stepped into the 9-star martial master realm. If there were no accidents, I would be the next emperor of the Great Qin Empire. But at this point, Qin Feiyang closed his eyes again, his face full of pain. Wolf King hurriedly said, if you don't want to remember, then don't. No matter what happens in the future, Brother Wolf will always stand by your side and help you share the burden. Thank you. Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and looked at it gratefully. He shook his head and said, I really don't want to recall the past. When I am ready, I will tell you everything. Right now, I can only tell you that the most ruthless royal family. Wolf King's pupils constricted. What exactly happened back then to make him say such a thing? It opened its mouth and laughed sinisterly. So you have such a great background. No wonder you have so many perfect martial skills. Look, Brother Wolf supports you so much. When you take back the world and become the emperor, shouldn't you also give Brother Wolf a title like the country protector divine beast? Just you wait, dream on. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. After sorting out his emotions, he began to draw the 5th stroke. The world. He didn't care. Chapter 127. Elder He and Elder He went to the Grand Hallmaster for a discussion, but no one knew the outcome. The Grand Hallmaster did not appear either. It was very mysterious. Luo Xiong did not leave Yen City immediately after obtaining the alchemy fire. Instead, he went to look for Fatso. Because Fatso was close to Qin Feiyang, he wanted Fatso to help persuade him. After learning about the whole incident, Fatso agreed readily that he would help persuade him. However, as soon as Luo Xiong left, he slipped out of the Danwang Hall and even urged Lu Hong to help spread the news. There was no suspense. The news immediately spread like wildfire in Yen City, causing a huge uproar. In the reception hall, Lu Hong frowned. Will we harm Zhang Haotian by doing this? No. Fatso waved his hand and smiled mischievously. We're helping him become famous. Lu Hong said, but, no buts. You've already boarded the pirate ship. It's hard for you to get off. Fatso smiled mischievously. Bastard, I knew you were up to no good. Lu Hong flew into a rage and slapped him. Fatso quickly dodged. Aya, don't be like this. You don't know Zhang Laoda. He won't let this matter rest. When he comes out, he'll definitely make a big move and slap the Danwang Hall in the face. We're paving the way for him now. Fatso said seriously. Paving the way? Lu Hong was stunned and puzzled. Once this matter spreads, everyone will definitely know about it. Wouldn't it be more explosive and effective to slap people in the face like this? Fatso sneered. Lu Hong's face twitched when she heard this. She looked at Fatso strangely and reminded him, don't forget, you're also a disciple of the Danwang Hall now. TSK. Fatso's face was full of disdain. If the Danwang Hall is filled with such shameless people, then Fat Lord might as well roam the world with Zhang Laoda. You have the courage but I don't. Lu Hong shook her head. Fatso said disdainfully, useless. Fat Lord, let me tell you something. Following Zhang Laoda is more promising than following Danwang Hall. Keep bragging. Lu Hong rolled her eyes. Blow? Fatso was stunned. He shook his head and said, woman, you really don't have any eyesight at all. Zhang Laoda's dagger and the treasure that can hide anywhere, are they ordinary things? Lu Hong's pupil shrank. After being reminded by Fatso, she remembered something very important. When they were at the Eagle Claw Peak, they hid in the treasure, but Zuan, who was outside, didn't notice them at all. This was enough to explain. The treasure was even more powerful than an 8-star combat emperor. How could the person who owned such a treasure be an ordinary person? Fat Lord has said everything that needs to be said. It's up to you to decide what to do. However, Fat Lord, I sincerely advise you not to betray Zhang Laoda. You know Zhang Laoda's methods. The consequences, I don't need Fat Lord to say it. You know it very well. Fatso grinned and turned to leave. Lu Hong also returned to her seat. She lowered her head and pondered. After daybreak, Ling Yunfei also received the news. He was furious on the spot. Bastard! Qin Feiyang had painstakingly snatched the nether devil flame. What reason did those old bastards of the Danwang Hall have to ask him to hand it over? How could there be such a good thing in the world? No, I have to seek justice for Qin Feiyang. He hurriedly left the cultivation room, but was stopped by Feng Ling Er, who had just arrived. After closing the stone door, Feng Ling Er said in a low voice, you can't interfere in this matter. Why? Ling Yunfei raised his eyebrows. Because this is the rule. The other forces are not allowed to interfere in the internal affairs of the 4 major forces. If you go now, the Danwang Hall has every reason to kill you. Feng Ling Er said. Then do you want me to sit here and worry? Ling Yunfei said angrily. You and Qin Feiyang have known each other for so long. Don't you know him? He won't do things that he isn't sure of. Since he has decided to turn hostile, he must have thought of a way out. What you need to do now is to cultivate quietly. Don't go and cause trouble for him. Feng Ling Er said. In the ancient castle, Qin Feiyang was very distressed. The further he progressed in the return formula, the longer it would take. He estimated that the 5th stroke would take at least 3 months. With his talent, his previous foundation, and the potential mark, he could break through a small realm in less than 3 months. In other words, the return formula could not help him speed up. Instead, it slowed him down. However, when he thought of the power of the return formula, he was very eager to have it immediately. Therefore, although he was very distressed, He gritted his teeth and continued to copy. As expected, 3 months later the 5th stroke was successfully copied. His cultivation also increased to a 6-star martial master. At this time, the strength of his punch was equivalent to the strength of 6 brute elephants. With the perfect skill, it was equivalent to the strength of 10 brute elephants. In other words, his strength had exceeded that of a 9-star martial master. If it was a 9-star martial master who had not mastered the skill, he could kill him with one punch. In about 5 months I will be 16 years old. A 16-year-old 6-star martial master is considered a genius in Yen City. But in the capital it is far from enough. Qin Feiyong muttered to himself. There was no joy of breaking through at all, because in his opinion this strength was simply insignificant. He had to continue to become stronger. And fast. He continued to copy the 6th stroke. As long as he successfully mastered the return formula, he could concentrate on improving his cultivation. By then, his speed would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. However, on this day, Fatso sneaked into the conference hall like a thief. Seeing that there was no one around, he whispered, "Zhang Laoda, Fat Lord knows you are hiding here." He came out when he heard it. "What are you doing?" After a while, Qin Feiyong appeared in the conference hall and looked at him in confusion. Fatso's eyes lit up. He hurried over and asked, "It's been 3 months. Why haven't you taken action?" "Action?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. Fatso said, "Don't you want to take revenge on the Danwang Hall? You know?" Qin Feiyong asked. "Yes." Fatso nodded and said with a sinister smile, as early as that day, Luo Xiong had already told Fat Lord and asked Fat Lord to help persuade him. He didn't think that Fat Lord was that kind of person without loyalty. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. To be honest, Fatty really didn't have any good points other than being loyal. Suddenly, he thought of something and said, "I want to ask you to do me a favor." Fatso said unhappily, "Don't be so polite. Just say it." Qin Feiyong took out the prescription of the red fire-colored glass pill and handed it to Fatso. He said, "Help me find these medicinal materials." Fatso looked carefully and said with a smile, "Except for the red fire-colored glass tree and the fire ginseng, the field has all the other medicinal materials. How many portions do you want?" "No fire ginseng?" Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Although the fire ginseng is not as rare as the red fire-colored glass tree, it is not common. "I'm afraid only the treasure pavilion has it," Fatso said. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and nodded. "Okay, I'll think of a way to get the fire ginseng. Get me 3 portions of the other medicinal materials." Because there were only 3 leaves of the red fire-colored glass tree, he could only refine 3 red fire-colored glass pills. Fatso nodded without hesitation. "Okay, but you have to find an opportunity. Because the field is not only guarded by Fat Lord, but also by a deacon elder. He keeps a close watch." "No." Fatso seemed to suddenly think of something and said in surprise, "Do you have the leaves of the red fire-colored glass tree?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded and asked, "Does Ling Yunfei know about my current situation?" Fatso looked at him in disbelief and said, "Fat Lord deliberately spread the news. Of course he knows. More than 2 months ago, he sent a letter saying that he can't intervene. He hopes you can understand." Qin Feiyong said, "What about the letter?" Fatso said, "Fat Lord has destroyed it." Qin Feiyong said with a smile, "Well done. Jia He, Elder He, and Grand Hall Master, are there any movements?" Fatso shook his head and said, "No, they don't seem to care about this at all. It's not that they don't care. They just want to compete with me in patience." Qin Feiyong sneered. Clatter. This time, a series of footsteps sounded. Someone was coming. Fatso's face changed greatly and hurriedly said, "What should we do? If they find out that Fat Lord sneaked into the Great Council Hall, they will definitely not forgive me." "What are you panicking for?" Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him, grabbed Fatso and went to the castle. As soon as the two disappeared, 2 old men walked into the Great Council Hall one after another. It was Elder He and Jia He. Jia He sat down on a chair and said angrily, "This little bastard, how long is he going to hide?" Elder He smiled confidently and said, "Don't worry. He will come out sooner or later and take the initiative to apologize to us. He will also hand over the Nether Devil Flame and beg us to take him in." Jia He sneered and said, "At that time, even if he begs, I won't forgive him. I will throw him into a pig cage and keep him there for 10 days to half a month." Elder He nodded and said, "We have to teach him a lesson. We have to let him know that even if he is a monster in the alchemy world, he will still have to behave himself in front of the Danwang Hall." The two talked about a few more trivial matters, and then left the Great Council Hall. Whoosh! Soon, Qin Feiyong and Fatso appeared out of thin air. Fatso said, "They are indeed trying to test your patience." Qin Feiyong asked, "The Danwang Hall also has pig cages?" Fatso said, "The Pill Hall's pig cages are modeled after the Danwang Hall. Don't you think so?" Immediately, Qin Feiyong clenched his hands. He actually wanted to throw him into the pig cage. This Jia He's heart was even darker than a person's. He said to Fatso, "You go back first." "What about you?" Fatso asked. Qin Feiyong sneered and said, "You have waited for so long, of course I won't disappoint you." Fatso's eyes lit up and asked, "What do you want to do?" "You will know very soon." Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed with a shocking cold light. "Then Fat Lord will wait for your good news." Fatso chuckled and turned to leave quickly. His face was also full of expectation. "I didn't plan to make a move so early, but you can only blame yourselves for not knowing the situation. Now you will regret it," Qin Feiyong mumbled. Chapter 128. Is he Zhang Haotian? That's right. It's him. He's been missing for 3 months. I thought he had left Yen City. I didn't expect him to still be here. The moment Qin Feiyong appeared, the Danwang Hall exploded. The news quickly spread to Jia He and Elder He's ears. "Why aren't you hiding anymore? I thought you had some backbone. I didn't expect you to be such a wretch. Hand over the nether devil flame and face the wall for half a month. Then I'll let bygones be bygones." The two immediately rushed over and stood in front of Qin Feiyong, mocking and ridiculing him. However, Qin Feiyong only glanced at them indifferently before walking past them. He didn't even look back as he left. Seeing Qin Feiyong's attitude, the two immediately blew their beards and glared at him. "Where do you think you're going?" Jia He shouted coldly. Qin Feiyong remained silent. "No, he's walking towards the door." "Is he leaving the Danwang Hall?" Elder He was surprised. "Leaving?" Jia He was furious. After waiting for 3 months, not only did he not come to apologize, he even wanted to leave the Danwang Hall. This was ridiculous. Elder He shouted, "Zhang Haotian, if you dare to step out of the Danwang Hall's door, you're no longer a disciple of the Danwang Hall. You better think about it seriously." Qin Feiyong still didn't say anything. When he reached the door of the Danwang Hall, he walked out without hesitation. Elder He could no longer stay calm. He shouted angrily, "Bastard, are you trying to rebel?" Lu Hong also walked out from the reception hall and advised, "Zhang Haotian, let's talk nicely. There's no need to make a scene like this." "Zhang Haotian? Wow, I finally see him in person. Let's go take a look. Let's see if he has 3 heads and 6 arms." The passers-by on the street immediately surrounded them. Their eyes were filled with curiosity as they discussed among themselves. Qin Feiyong smiled at Lu Hong and turned to look at the crowd. He smiled faintly. "Excuse me? You can still smile?" The crowd was stunned. Didn't they see Elder He and Jia He flip out? Hearing about him couldn't compare to meeting. This kid's guts. The crowd in front of Qin Feiyong quickly parted and made a path for him. Qin took a step forward. "From now onwards, no, from 3 months ago, I have nothing to do with the Danwang Hall. From now onwards, no, since 3 months from now." Qin Feiyong then took out his identity token. "What are you doing?" Seeing this, Elder He said angrily, "Since I've already left the Danwang Hall, there's no need for this thing to exist." Qin Feiyong clenched his fist. With a crack, the token was crushed into pieces. This meant that he had officially left the Danwang Hall. His action caused an uproar. Everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. Others dreamt of entering the Pill Emperor Hall. Yet this young man didn't even hesitate to shatter his identity medallion. Was the Danwang Hall really so unbearable in his eyes? Elder He and Jia He were shaking with anger. No one had ever dared to be so arrogant in front of the Danwang Hall. No disciple had ever voluntarily left the Danwang Hall. Usually it was the Danwang Hall that kicked out disciples they didn't like. Today, however, it was the other way around. This kid's attitude toward the Danwang Hall was like facing a pile of dog poop. Extreme disdain and extreme disgust. It was a slap to the Danwang Hall's face. Do you want to know where I'm going? I'm going to the Martial Imperial Hall. Those who want to know if I can enter the Martial Imperial Hall can come and join in the fun. Qin Feiyong said without turning his head. What? To the Martial Imperial Hall? Isn't this embarrassing for the Danwang Hall? He must be doing this on purpose. I want to go and see what he's capable of. Why is he so confident? I'm going too. Most of the people followed Qin Feiyong. Those who didn't go looked at the Danwang Hall playfully. If this kid really did enter the Martial Imperial Hall, they would lose not only a monstrous disciple and the Nether Devil Flame, but also face and dignity. The Martial Imperial Hall would be the biggest winner. Jia He and Elder He finally realized that this matter had blown out of proportion and was already out of their control. The two of them flew into the air to discuss with the Grand Hall Master. Only the Grand Hall Master had the ability to settle this matter. Not long after receiving the Grand Hall Master's instructions, the two of them flew into the air again and rushed to the Martial Imperial Hall. The Martial Imperial Hall. In a large hall, a middle-aged man in purple sat on the main seat. His eyebrows were as sharp as swords, and his body was tall and straight. There were two other people beside him. One of them was Elder Wan. The other person was a beautiful woman. She was wearing a purple and gold dress, and her long black hair was tied up. She looked elegant and had an extraordinary temperament. The man in purple looked at the two of them and asked, "You've also received the news, right?" Elder Wan and the beautiful woman nodded. The man in purple said, "Then tell me what you think." "I'll go first. To be honest, when I went to pick them up that night, I wanted to invite Zhang Haotian to join the Martial Imperial Hall, but Elder He was there, so I didn't say anything. Now that we have such a good opportunity, we naturally can't reject this kid." Elder Wan smiled. "Think so too. Not only is this kid monstrously talented in alchemy, but I heard from Ling and Yun Fei that he's also outstanding in martial arts. We have no reason to reject such an all-round talent." The beautiful woman also expressed her opinion. The violet-robed man nodded. "I know this as well. But this young man obviously wants to borrow the power of our Martial King Hall to make things difficult for the Pill Emperor Hall. If we allow him to join us, I'm afraid the Pill Emperor Hall would be extremely unhappy." The beautiful woman said unhappily. "To put it bluntly, you just hate him for using our Martial Imperial Hall." The man in purple's expression froze and he smiled bitterly. "It's fine as long as you know it. Why do you have to point it out?" The beautiful woman rolled her eyes and shook her head. "So be it. It's worth it to get such a talent." At this moment, Elder He and Jia He descended from the sky and rushed into the hall. "What are you doing here?" The man in purple frowned. "Elder He said, the Grand Hall Master asked us to come. He wants you to ignore Zhang Haotian." The man in purple was stunned, and he sneered. "Do you think that's possible?" "Elder He said, the Grand Hall Master already guessed that you would do this. If you insist on snatching him, we can only report it to the state government and let the state government make a decision." Jia He added, "Zhang Haotian's talent in alchemy far surpasses his talent in martial arts. I believe that the final result will belong to our Danwang Hall." The man in purple laughed. "You guys are really unscrupulous. But since you want him to stay in the Danwang Hall so badly, why do you have to drive him away? Don't you think it's troublesome? How could we have known that he has such a strong temper?" Elder He revealed a helpless expression. The beautiful woman sneered. "Now that things have come to this, it'll be difficult to make him change his mind." Jia He said disdainfully, "Don't worry about that. As long as he hits a wall in the Martial Imperial Hall and has nowhere to go, he'll naturally go to the Danwang Hall to beg us." The beautiful woman sneered. "Good plan. I'm just afraid that it'll backfire when the time comes." Jia He said, "We know what we're doing. You don't have to worry about it." The beautiful woman frowned and looked at the man in purple. After a moment of silence, the man in purple nodded. "All right, as you wish. Elder Wan, I'll leave this matter to you." "Me?" Elder Wan's old face twitched, and he shook his head. I won't be the bad guy. Moreover, if I go, Linger and Yunfei will hate me to death. Then I'll go, the beautiful woman said helplessly. When Qin Feiyong arrived at the Martial Imperial Hall, it was already afternoon. The layout of the Martial Imperial Hall was similar to that of the Danwang Hall. In the reception hall, the beautiful woman had been waiting for a long time. However, when she walked out and saw the densely packed crowd behind Qin Feiyong, she immediately frowned. It seemed that this kid wouldn't stop until he caused a storm in the city. She looked at Qin Feiyong and shook her head. Zhang Haoyan, the Martial Imperial Hall can't take you in. You should find another place. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Soon he figured it out. It must be the Danwang Hall behind this. The corners of Qin Wenqian's lips curled up as he shook his head. Who would have thought that the Martial King Hall would actually listen to the Pill Emperor Hall? What a joke. What's the difference between such a place and the Pill Emperor Hall? The beautiful woman frowned. I don't need you to rush me. I'll leave immediately. But from today onwards, the Martial Imperial Hall will become a laughing stock. Qin Feiyong laughed and walked away. The crowd in front also automatically opened up a path for him. The beautiful woman frowned and said, Wait, it's not impossible to enter the Martial Imperial Hall, but you have to pass 2 tests. Qin Feiyong stopped, turned around and asked, What tests? The first test, strength. The second test, actual combat. The beautiful woman said. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. The beautiful woman said, Throw a punch at me with all your strength, then I'll offend you. Heart-lock killing fist. Qin Feiyong clenched his fist and rushed in front of the beautiful woman like a wild bull. He covered his fist with true qi and threw a punch. The beautiful woman only stretched out her hand and blocked Qin Feiyong's fist. However, her face instantly changed and she said in surprise, The strength of 10 barbarian elephants. Have you broken through to a 6-star martial master? Qin Feiyong stopped and smiled. I just broke through not long ago. Gasp. The beautiful woman secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. Some time ago, she asked Ling Yunfei about Qin Feiyong's situation. Not long before he left Black Bear City, he broke through to a 5-star martial master. In other words, he only used 3 months to raise his cultivation by a small level. With such speed, even in the Martial Imperial Hall, he would be a top genius. Chapter 129. Qin Feiyong asked, Senior, did I pass the first test? The beautiful woman came back to her senses and nodded, Pass. Now let's begin the second test. 6-star martial master, step forward. Behind the beautiful woman, there were many disciples of the martial arts hall. As soon as the voice sounded, a dozen people immediately stepped forward. Gang fight. Qin Feiyong frowned. He looked at them one by one. There were men and women, tall and short, fat and thin, but without exception, they were all very young and had an extraordinary temperament. The beautiful woman said, Whoever can defeat him will be rewarded with 30,000 gold coins. Let me. A young man in black stepped forward and landed in front of Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong said, I'm afraid one is not enough. Arrogant. The young man in black roared. Boom. His aura burst out and his true qi surged. He slapped at Qin Feiyong. Reckless ox fist. Qin Feiyong did not hesitate to use a martial technique and punched the young man in black. Wah! The young man in black smashed into the crowd and spat out a mouthful of blood. Lying on the ground, he glared at Qin Feiyong and roared, Bastard, you actually used a martial technique. You're too despicable. Qin Feiyong said lightly, No matter who you fight, as long as it's a battle, you have to go all out. Didn't the martial arts hall teach you this? The young man in black still wanted to say something. The beautiful woman shouted, Next. A woman in red walked out. She was about 20 years old. She was tall and had exquisite facial features. She was quite stunning. I'll defeat you in one move. However, she was extremely strong. She pointed at Qin Feiyong and was extremely cold and arrogant. Come on, don't talk nonsense. Qin Feiyong said calmly with one hand behind his back. Phantom palm. The woman in red waved her palm and true qi surged in her palm. For a moment, In front of Qin Feiyang, 3 palms appeared. The palm wind whistled and sand flew. This martial technique could confuse the opponent's eyes and take advantage of the situation to kill the opponent in one move. It was hard to distinguish between real and fake. However, Qin Feiyang didn't look at the 3 palms. Instead, he stared at the ground. What is he doing? Everyone was puzzled. Reckless ox fist. Just as the 3 palms were about to land on Qin Feiyang's face, he suddenly punched out and hit the palms of the woman in red. Bang! Both of them took half a step back. You can actually see? The red-clothed woman was bewildered. She found it hard to believe. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, no matter how fast you are, you will still cast a shadow on the ground. Remember to find a place where there is no sun the next time you use this martial technique. The woman in red was extremely shocked. This person was actually able to see through the flaws of the phantom fist at the first meeting. Wasn't his eyesight a little too shocking? Qin Feiyang said, "You are no match for me. Back down. Otherwise, don't say that I bullied a woman." The red-clothed woman's eyes turned cold as she shouted, "Defeat me first and then you can be arrogant." Illusion extinguishing palm. At this moment, 9 palms actually appeared in front of Qin Feiyang's eyes. Even if there were shadows on the ground, it was impossible to tell which palm was the real one. This was because the speed was simply too fast. It was at least several times faster than before. Qin Feiyang only took a glance and felt his eyes turning sour. "Kid, let's see how you will break this move of mine." The red-clothed woman rushed forward. Her 9 palms were aimed at Qin Feiyang with an earth-shattering momentum. Qin Feiyang took a closer look and said in realization, "So it's a perfect martial technique. No wonder you are so confident. Since you know, then surrender." The red-clothed woman shouted. Qin Feiyang narrowed his eyes slightly. The illusion extinguishing palm was extremely fast. Martial artists of the same realm couldn't tell which one was real and which one was fake. This was indeed a top-notch perfect martial technique. He believed that this woman should also be a core disciple of the martial Imperial Hall. With her strength, she was already strong enough to dominate the same realm. But for Qin Feiyang, who had hundreds of perfect martial techniques, such strength was far from enough. The 9 palms were menacing. The shocking palm wind was like a sharp blade, cutting Qin Feiyang's face, causing a stinging pain. But he didn't retreat half a step. His eyes were as calm as water. "You lost." The red-clothed woman had already arrived in front of Qin Feiyang with a victorious smile on her face. "Is that so?" Qin Feiyang raised the corner of his mouth with a trace of ridicule. Tiger-binding hand. His right hand reached out like lightning. Like an eagle claw, it broke through layers of illusions and grabbed the red-clothed woman's wrist. How could this be? The red-clothed woman stopped and looked at Qin Feiyang, who was close at hand. Her face was full of confusion. The group of martial Imperial Hall disciples beside her also had a face of disbelief. The illusion extinguishing palm was the most powerful martial technique of the martial Imperial Hall. No matter who the opponent was, as long as their cultivation was the same, the illusion extinguishing palm would always be invincible. However, at this moment, how could it be so easily broken by this person? Was this a dream? Qin Feiyang said. Actually, you haven't displayed the true power of the illusion extinguishing palm. The red-clothed woman was startled. The group of martial Imperial Hall disciples also had a face of confusion. As for the beautiful woman, her eyes were emitting rays of light. "I judged it from your strength. Your current strength seems to be the strength of 10 barbarian elephants, but in fact it's still a bit away from that. There's no problem with your cultivation. Then there's only one reason. You haven't practiced the illusion extinguishing palm to perfection," Qin Feiyang said. The red-clothed woman looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. After a long time, she lowered her head and said, "I've lost." Qin Feiyang let go of his hand and said, "What you lack is not proficiency, but actual combat. If you're free, go outside the city and fight with the beasts. It won't take long for you to display the full power of the illusion extinguishing palm. Of course, if you think of yourself as a delicate princess, then you can ignore my words," he added. After seeing this, everyone's expression became strange. Was this still a trial? He was clearly an experienced teacher who was teaching his disciples. The beautiful woman's heart was burning with passion. He was able to see through the weakness of the illusion palm and find the weakness of the red-clothed woman. Most importantly, this kid was only 15 years old. That woman was already 20 years old. There was a difference of 5 years. At such a young age, he had such a clear understanding of martial skills. He was simply a genius in martial arts. Elder He and Jia He were currently standing in front of the window of the reception hall. They had witnessed the entire process with their own eyes and were left speechless. This kid's martial talent was definitely not weaker than his pill alchemy talent. This was troublesome, because they could see that the beautiful woman was tempted. The beautiful woman suddenly turned her head and looked at the 6-star martial masters who had just stepped forward. She shouted, "All of you attack together." What? Attack together? There are a total of 12 6-star martial masters. Isn't this clearly bullying Jiang Haotian? The crowd was shocked. The 12 people were also astonished. The beautiful woman said, "If you defeat him, each of you will be rewarded 100,000 gold coins." 100,000. Then what are we waiting for? Attack. The 12 people immediately rushed toward Qin Feiyang. Moreover, none of them showed mercy and used the illusion extinguishing palm at the first moment. The afterimages of hundreds of palms were like raging waves beating the shore, attacking Qin Feiyang from all directions. All the escape routes are blocked. Those 12 people are also the core disciples of the Danwang Hall. Jiang Haotian should be at his wits' end. Defeat is inevitable, but even if he loses, it will be a glorious loss. That's true. The crowd was discussing. Defeat? Qin Feiyang sneered inwardly. Boom! He abruptly stomped on the ground and leaped high into the air, landing behind one of the men. That person was shocked and quickly turned around. However, just as he turned around, Qin Feiyang pointed a finger at his right shoulder. That person screamed as a bloody hole appeared on his shoulder and blood gushed out. What? He seriously injured one person in an instant. Look! There's something wrong with his index finger. The crowd looked carefully and found that Qin Feiyang's index finger had turned into ice. That's right. It was the ice crystal finger. At the same time, the remaining 11 people were also shocked. They quickly turned around and continued to attack Qin Feiyang. Even if I don't use the smoke shifting steps, I can still finish you off. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly and instantly turned into a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus, fighting with the 11 people. Tiger binding hand. Wind thunder palm. Ice crystal finger. Heart-locking fist. He casually waved his hand and pointed at them. They were all perfect martial skills. At this moment, every nerve and cell in his body became incomparably sensitive. He didn't even need to turn around to feel the situation behind him. Every time he attacked, there was no extra movement, it was clean and neat. Moreover, he never missed. Every time he attacked, one person would definitely be seriously injured and fall to the ground. This was his battle instinct. Qin Feiyang had completely entered battle mode. Although there was a sea of people around at this moment, it was dead silent. Everyone's mouth was open and their eyes were wide open, filled with shock. One had to know. The strength of the core disciples of the martial imperial palace was enough to dominate those of the same realm. However, the 12 of them together couldn't do anything to Jiang Haotian. The beautiful woman's hands were tightly clenched together. Her eyes were shining like 2 bright moons. She had a high cultivation level and could see at a glance that Qin Feiyang didn't use his brain to think about each of his moves. They were completely controlled by his instincts. This kind of battle instinct could only be slowly cultivated through endless killing and the baptism of blood. In other words, this kid had already been through hundreds of battles. When danger approached, he didn't even need to use his eyes to see. His body could feel it. As for the core disciples of the martial imperial palace, although they had daily training, they had never experienced a life and death battle. They were 2 completely different types of people. There was no comparison at all. More importantly, she observed and found that this kid had no less than 4 perfect martial skills. This made her feel incredible, because even the martial imperial palace only had 1 perfect martial skill. Bang bang bang. Ah! After 10 breaths, the 11 core disciples fell to the ground one after another, groaning in pain. At this moment, they looked at Qin Feiyang with only fear in their eyes. Then they looked at Qin Feiyang. He only suffered some minor injuries. Phew. He let out a long breath and glanced at the core disciples. He raised his head to look at the beautiful woman and said, "I don't want to continue this boring game." The beautiful woman took a deep breath and nodded. "For you, this is indeed just a boring game." Everyone was dumbfounded. Such an exciting battle, and he said it was boring? Qin Feiyang asked, "Did I pass the second test?" "Yes." The beautiful woman nodded and said, "The entrance of the Martial Imperial Palace is right beside you. You can enter at any time." "I don't agree. Elder He Jiahe, how could they sit still?" They hurriedly ran out of the reception hall and began to panic. Chapter 130. Qin Feiyang turned to look at the two, his face full of sarcasm. And he didn't hide it. The surrounding people's eyes also became playful. The atmosphere here was a little strange. "What do you mean?" Elder He and Qin Feiyang came over and looked at the beautiful woman with questioning eyes. The beautiful woman said indifferently, "You saw it very clearly. His martial arts talent is no less than his alchemy talent. My Martial Imperial Hall has no reason to help you." Elder He said, "But you promised us before. As the ruler of the Martial Imperial Hall, shouldn't you keep your word?" The beautiful woman laughed and said, "We did promise you, but who knew he was so cute?" Jiahe's eyes darkened and shouted, "You don't say I'm unrighteous. It's you who didn't know how to cherish talent. If it weren't for your insatiable greed and forcing him to hand over the Nether Devil Flame, would he have left the Danwang Hall? In the end you asked for it." The beautiful woman didn't hide her sarcasm. Jiahe stared at the beautiful woman. His hands clenched so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. Obviously, his anger had reached its peak. Sigh. Elder He sighed deeply and turned to look at Qin Feiyang with a complicated expression. "We were wrong in the past. I hope you can forgive us." Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted and said indifferently, "I'm just an insignificant nobody. How would I dare to let Elder He apologize personally?" Elder He's expression stiffened and he forced a smile. "Follow us back to the Danwang Hall first. As for other matters, we can discuss them later." Discuss? So, you haven't given up. Interesting. The dignified Danwang Hall not only doesn't protect the interests of its disciples, but also relies on its power to exploit them. What's the difference between this and a bandit's nest? Qin Feiyang mocked. The anger in his heart grew stronger and stronger. These old bastards were the most shameless people he had ever seen. Elder He's face was gloomy. In his opinion, being able to go this far for a junior was already giving him enough face. However, the other party was unforgiving and spoke rudely again and again. Not only was this trampling on his dignity, it was also an insult to the Danwang Hall. "Are you very angry and want to kill me?" Qin Feiyang sneered. Elder He did not answer, but the look in their eyes said it all. Before scheming against others, you have to take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror to see if you have the ability. Although you are very strong, even an idiot would be able to see through your thoughts with a single glance. A competition of patience? You want me to apologize to you and beg you to take me in? Did you really think that the Danwang Hall was so powerful that I wouldn't be able to survive if I left the Danwang Hall? Don't think too highly of yourself. The sun will still rise no matter who you leave. I won't go back to the Danwang Hall. That place is disgusting. Do you remember what I said 3 months ago? Let's see who will regret it in the future. Now this is just the beginning. Qin Feiyang glanced at the two of them mockingly, then turned to the beautiful woman and cupped his hands. "Please forgive me." After that, he turned and left. The beautiful woman was stunned. The surrounding crowd was also shocked. Didn't he pass the test? Why didn't he enter the Martial Imperial Hall? So he was just using the Martial Imperial Hall to slap the Danwang Hall's face? Was all of this just a farce that he had planned? At first, everyone thought that the final winner would be the Martial Imperial Hall. However, the result was, the Martial Imperial Hall did not get any benefits at all. He himself was the biggest winner. Not only did he show his potential and talent to attract the attention of the Martial Imperial Hall, but he also put the Danwang Hall in an awkward position. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. This person's brain was really not simple. Seeing that Qin Feiyong was about to enter the crowd, the beautiful woman hurriedly said, Zhang Haotian, if you join the Martial Imperial Hall now, the Grand Hall Master, Elder Wan, and I will immediately help you control the Nether Devil Flame. Elder He and Jia He suddenly turned their heads and glanced at the beautiful woman, because the beautiful woman's action was undoubtedly to put the Danwang Hall in an even more awkward position. What are you looking at? This is the Martial Imperial Hall. Do you want to fight? The beautiful woman raised her eyebrows and a bone-piercing cold aura emitted from her body. The two of them were as calm as water. They thought that no matter how big the commotion was, they would be able to control the situation. Only now did they realize. As early as 3 months ago, this matter was already out of their control. What should they do now? How could they save all of this? This person already hated them to the bone. What could they do to change his mind? At this moment, the two of them fell into hesitation. At the same time, endless regret surged uncontrollably like a tide, drowning his entire soul. It looks like they're regretting it now. Nonsense, why don't you think about it? How valuable is an alchemist who can refine top-grade pills? Moreover, he's also a martial arts genius. Who wouldn't regret losing such a monstrous talent? Actually, the Danwang Hall shouldn't have tried to steal the Nether Devil Flame from the beginning. That's right. The right thing to do would have been to help him control the Nether Devil Flame like the Martial Imperial Hall. This way all of this wouldn't have happened. On the contrary, Zhang Haotian would be deeply grateful, and would pledge his loyalty to the Danwang Hall. They're both in power in the county of Swallow, but why is there such a big difference? The crowd discussed in low voices. And when these discussions landed in the ears of Elder He and Elder He, it made their faces and ears flush red, and they were so ashamed that they could not show their faces. At the same time, when Qin Feiyong heard the beautiful woman's words, he stopped in his tracks and pondered. The beautiful woman smiled and said, If you can't make up your mind right now, you can stay at the Martial Imperial Hall and slowly think about it. This IQ is simply crushing the Danwang Hall. The crowd sighed. Not rushing, not putting on airs, and giving the other party time to think was the greatest respect to others. Once Zhang Haotian nodded and stayed at the Martial Imperial Hall, joining the Martial Imperial Hall would be a done deal. Qin Feiyong raised his head and looked at the beautiful woman. Senior, why don't we work together? Work together. The beautiful woman was stunned and asked how. Qin Feiyong said, Help me control the Nether Devil Flame and I'll refine supreme grade pills for you. However, you have to provide the materials and give me a certain amount of compensation. The beautiful woman's eyes lit up. No. Elder He and Jia He shouted at the same time. If this matter was settled, the profits of the Danwang Hall would be greatly reduced. They definitely wouldn't allow this to happen. Qin Feiyong glanced at the two of them and said indifferently, This is my business. What does it have to do with you? The two of them were like mutes, unable to speak of their bitterness. Qin Feiyong disdainfully looked at the beautiful woman and asked, Senior, what do you think? The beautiful woman nodded and said, All right, I agree to work with you. As for the compensation, we'll discuss it in the conference hall. No problem. Qin Feiyong smiled and turned around to walk towards the beautiful woman. But at this time, Elder He stepped in front of him and asked, Could it be that there is no way to turn this matter around? Then tell me, if you were me, what would you do? Would you return to the Dan Hall? Qin Feiyong asked back. As long as everything is over, I will return to the Dan Hall. Elder He said, I admire you, but I'm sorry, I'm not as magnanimous as you. I'm a very stingy person. After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he stepped forward and walked past Elder He. I don't believe that I can't deal with a brat like you. Jia He couldn't take it anymore. He stretched out his hand and turned it into an eagle's claw, grabbing towards Qin Feiyong's neck. The beautiful woman's expression changed. She hurriedly stepped forward and protected Qin Feiyong behind her. She said coldly, Old Jia, where do you think this is? How dare you act so presumptuously? Old Jia, stop it. Elder He also hurriedly shouted. Jia He raised his eyebrows and stopped his hand in the air. He glanced at the beautiful woman and then looked at Qin Feiyong. His eyes were as sharp as a blade, extremely sharp. Qin Feiyong walked out from behind the beautiful woman and looked at Jia He without fear. He said indifferently, "Give me 5 years, and I will definitely step on you." Is this a declaration of war? The crowd was shocked. He dared to declare war against the battle emperor. Was he borrowing courage from the heavens? Haha, don't say that I didn't give you a chance. I'll give you 10 years. 10 years later, if you can defeat me, I'll kneel down and let you do whatever you want to me. If you can't, I'll cut you into pieces. Jia He was startled, but he then burst out laughing in disdain. Then we'll wait and see. Qin Feiyong replied calmly and walked straight into the martial imperial hall. The beautiful woman frowned and quickly followed behind. After seeing Qin Feiyong disappear from the martial imperial hall, Elder He said angrily, "Old Jia, why are you so stupid? Now that you've caused such a scene, there's no way to turn things around." Jia He said angrily, "Can't you see that he's determined to leave the Danwang Hall? Even so, you shouldn't deepen your hatred. He can refine pills of the highest quality. Do you know what this means? If you don't, I'll tell you now. His future achievements will be greater than ours. He might even have the chance to enter the imperial capital." Elder He roared. The imperial capital. Jia He's eyes trembled. The imperial capital was a legendary place that countless people yearned for. Even he, the law enforcement elder of the Danwang Hall, could only look up to the imperial capital. Elder He continued, "Although the reason why he left the Pill Emperor Hall was because we forced him to hand over the Nether Devil Flame, the biggest reason was because of your attitude back then. What did you say to him? Uneducated bastard. Didn't you see his reaction when he heard those words? He couldn't wait to kill you on the spot. Sigh, I shouldn't have brought you along." Elder He shook his head and sighed regretfully. "Isn't he an uneducated bastard?" Jia He sneered. "You." Elder He glared at him, but swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He let out a long sigh and looked extremely haggard. "Since it's already like this, it's useless to say more. Let's go back and ask the Grand Hall Master. He might have a way." After saying that, he flew into the sky and disappeared without a trace. Genius. No matter how powerful a genius is, as long as he hasn't grown up, he's nothing to worry about. I'd like to see if you can hide in the Martial Imperial Hall for the rest of your life. Jia He turned his head and looked at the Martial Imperial Hall. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he turned into a ray of divine light and flew away. The main character had left. Those who wanted to join in the fun naturally didn't stay and dispersed. Chapter 131. This time the Danwang Hall didn't just lose a disciple. It also lost its reputation, image and people's hearts. This was because they used their power to threaten their disciples and steal their things. This kind of bandit behavior was disdainful. This matter would become a stain on the Danwang Hall's reputation that would be difficult to erase. Most importantly, after this incident, the disciples of the Danwang Hall would be wary of the higher-ups. After all, no one wanted to have their hard-earned things snatched away by someone else. This was the chain effect. Martial Imperial Hall. Under the guidance of the beautiful woman, Qin Feiyong walked into the meeting hall. He saw Elder Wan and a man in purple sitting in front of a tea table. They were drinking tea and chatting. The beautiful woman frowned and said angrily, "I offended Old Man He and Old Man Jia outside. And you guys are leisurely drinking tea? Isn't this too much?" He. Elder Wan raised his head and laughed. "It's better for you to offend them alone than to offend all of us." The man in purple said, "Yeah, Yin City is only so big. We can't have a complete falling out with the Danwang Hall." The beautiful woman rolled her eyes at the two of them and led Qin Feiyong over. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, Elder Wan." Elder Wan nodded and stood up with a smile. "Little guy, the disciples have told us about your performance outside. I didn't expect you to be an all-around monster." "Elder, you flatter me." Qin Feiyong shook his head and looked at the man in purple. He smiled and said, "Senior, you must be the Grand Hall Master." "Yes, I am." The man in purple looked at Qin Feiyong curiously and asked, "Can you tell me why you don't want to become a disciple of the Martial Imperial Hall?" Qin Feiyong said, "I don't want trouble." The man in purple asked, "If that's the case, why did you join the Dan Hall?" Qin Feiyong sighed, "I had no choice. I know about this. This kid offended all the big shots in Black Bear City. He's basically at the point where the whole world is his enemy. Luo Xiong had always wanted him to join the Pill Hall. Hence, he extended his hand and said that he had already joined the Pill Hall. This brat is smart. He took the opportunity to admit his identity as a disciple of the Pill Hall. Elder Wan joked. The purple-clothed man's face twitched. He was so young and already knew how to cause trouble. What would happen when he grew up? He was afraid that the sky would be turned upside down. Qin Feiyong was rather embarrassed. The purple-robed man's face turned serious. He put down the teacup and said, "All right, sit down. Let's talk business. How do we cooperate?" Qin Feiyong nodded and sat opposite the purple-robed man. He organized his thoughts and said, "You provide the pill recipe and herbs, and I will help you refine them. We will each get half of the refined pills. The pill formula and herbs are all provided by us. You only need to refine it once and you want a 50-50 split? Isn't your appetite a little too big?" The purple-robed man frowned. Qin Feiyong said, "Is it big? I don't think so. After all, what I refined is a supreme-grade pill." "I know it's a supreme-grade pill, but it's not a good deal. Because the Martial Imperial Hall doesn't have the pill formula. We have to think of a way to find it. We will definitely have to pay a high price to find these pill formulas. Moreover, we need money to buy the herbs. The most important thing is, without my help, you won't be able to control the Nether Devil Flame. And you want to take half of it without doing anything. Do you think it's realistic?" the purple-robed man asked. Qin Feiyong frowned. The purple-robed man said, "If you insist on a 50-50 split, then I'll leave the pill formula to you. Our Martial Imperial Hall will only provide the ingredients and ensure your safety. If you agree, I'll send a 9-star Battle King to protect you." Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed. Now, he was most afraid of the Danwang Hall's revenge. Moreover, he had to be wary of Lin Han. It would be much safer to have an expert by his side at all times. But the problem was that the various pill formulas were basically controlled by the Danwang Hall. There were very few that were circulated outside. Where would he find them? "All right, I agree." In the end, Qin Feiyong nodded. As for the pill formula, he couldn't rush it. He would think of a way later. "Young man, you should be more straightforward." The purple-robed man smiled and said, "Take out the Nether Devil Flame." Qin Feiyong didn't move at all. With just a thought, the Nether Devil Flame shot out from between his eyebrows. The three of them looked at each other with a trace of suspicion in their eyes. The purple-robed man stretched out his hand and the Nether Devil Flame fell in front of him. It was suspended in the void. The pitch-black flames moved, giving off a very strange feeling. The beautiful woman said in a deep voice, "It's really the Nether Devil Flame." Elder Wan sighed and said, "For the past 8 years, we all thought that Xuan was dead. Who would have thought that not only was he not dead, but he has also stepped into the 8-star Combat Emperor. When he makes a comeback, the county of Yen will be filled with blood. He is improving, but so are we. We didn't kill him 8 years ago, but the next time he appears we will definitely send him to hell." The purple-robed man smiled coldly. Battle Chi gushed out from his palm and turned into a raging wave that rushed towards the Nether Devil Flame. At the same time, the beautiful woman waved her hand and a Battle Chi boundary formed in an instant, enveloping Qin Feiyong inside. At the same time, in a cave, Xuan and Lin Chun were refining the blood spirit pill with their eyes closed. Puff! Suddenly, Xuan spat out a mouthful of blood. His old eyes suddenly opened and 2 terrifying rays of cold light burst out from his eyes. Lin Chun opened his eyes suspiciously. When he saw Xuan's condition, his expression changed and he asked, "Master, what happened?" Xuan said, "Someone erased the blood contract with the Nether Devil Flame." "Who?" Lin Chun was surprised. Xuan sneered and said, "Who else can it be? It must be the 4 old dogs of King Yen. In the entire Yen County, only they have the ability to do so." Lin Chun frowned and said, "In other words, Zhang Haotian has gone to Yen City?" "Yen City, I will find you." Xuan laughed sinisterly, closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. Conference hall. At this moment it was like a big furnace, filled with a shocking heat wave. If it wasn't for the protection of the Battle Chi boundary, Qin Feiyong would have been burned to ashes. The reason was that once the blood contract was erased, the nether devil flame would be an ownerless object and would immediately release high temperature. The purple-robed man waved his sleeve and a majestic battle chi rushed towards the nether devil flame. After a while, that terrifyingly high temperature was actually suppressed by him. Then, he turned his head to look at Qin Feiyong and said in a deep voice, "The alchemy fire needs a lot of blood to recognize its master. Are you ready?" Qin Feiyong nodded and left the battle chi boundary, walking in front of the nether devil flame. The purple-robed man waved his hand and a wave of battle chi flew over. Suddenly a wound appeared on his wrist. Fresh blood spurted out. Qin Feiyong hurriedly raised his arm and placed it on the nether devil flame. Blood flowed continuously into the nether devil flame. Gradually, the originally pitch-black nether devil flame gradually turned blood-red. In the end, it looked as if it had been soaked in blood and looked extremely demonic. Qin Feiyong had lost half of the blood in his body, and he began to feel dizzy. Buzz! Finally, the nether devil flame trembled in the void and the blood-red color quickly faded, turning pitch-black again. At the same time, Qin Feiyong also felt that blood was thicker than water. He felt that the nether devil flame was already a part of his body. The purple-robed man lowered his arm and smiled. "The blood contract has been formed. You are now its master." Qin Feiyong was overjoyed. He bandaged the wound on his wrist and raised his head to look at the nether devil flame with an excited expression. A blood contract was equivalent to a contract. Any treasure that was bound by blood would have a blood contract hidden within the treasure's body. Only when the blood contract was formed could the treasure be controlled at will. If the treasure had an owner, the blood contract would have to be erased before it could be bound by blood again. But to erase a blood contract, not just anyone could do it. The cultivation level had to be at least the same as the original owner. Qin Feiyong originally planned to erase the blood contract with the nether devil flame and bind it with his blood when his cultivation level caught up with Zhou An's. He never thought that the martial imperial palace would help him. However, the purple-robed man's strength had really shocked him. Being able to erase Zhou An's blood contract was enough to prove that this man was an 8-star combat emperor. The purple-robed man said, "The matter has been settled. I should go and cultivate. You three can discuss the rest." The three of them nodded. After the purple-robed man left, Elder Wan said with a smile, "Zhang Haoyan, don't be too happy. Now that the nether devil flame has recognized its master, when are you going to start refining pills?" Qin Feiyong's mind moved and the nether devil flame entered the ancient castle again. He asked, "What kind of pills do you want me to refine?" "What kind of pills can you refine?" the beautiful woman asked. Qin Feiyong said, "Healing pill, bone replenishing pill, body tempering pill, chi gathering pill." "Why are they all low-level pills?" the beautiful woman frowned. Qin Feiyong was stunned. This was too much of a blow to him. Elder Wan shook his head and laughed. He said to the beautiful woman, "Don't forget, he has just started refining pills. It's already very rare for him to be able to refine 4 kinds of pills." The beautiful woman curled her lips in disdain. "Looks like I have to use a big move." Qin Feiyong muttered secretly and said with a smile, "Senior, I can refine the red fire-colored glass pill. Do you have the materials?" "Really?" The two of them were surprised. "Of course." Qin Feiyong nodded. The two of them looked at each other. The red fire-colored glass pill was such a rare pill. He also knew how to refine it. "Kid, did you steal the pill recipe?" Elder Wan asked in a low voice. "Steal?" Qin Feiyong's face twitched. Did he look like such a person? He coughed dryly and said, "Don't worry about that. As long as you have the medicinal materials, I will refine it for you. But according to the agreement, we will split it 50-50. If the Martial Imperial Hall really had medicinal materials, then he would make a big profit this time." The beautiful woman said, "First, make a list of the medicinal materials and let us take a look." Elder Wan immediately went to get a brush and ink. Moreover, he personally ground the ink. Qin Feiyong held the brush and quickly wrote down the names of various medicinal materials on a piece of blank paper. After making the list, the beautiful woman and Elder Wan each held it in their hands and looked at it carefully. Qin Feiyong asked, "How is it? Do you have it?" Elder Wan put down the list and laughed, "Of course, and we can prepare 6 sets of materials." "So many." Qin Feiyong was wild with joy, because once he refined it, he would get 3 red fire-colored glass pills. Chapter 132. However, while Qin Feiyong was happy, he found that the beautiful woman and Elder One were looking at him with a thoughtful look. He touched his nose and asked in confusion, "Why are you looking at me like that?" The beautiful woman said, "Why do I feel like I've been tricked by you?" Elder One nodded. "Trap." Qin Feiyong was stunned and said innocently, "Did I?" The beautiful woman said, "If we go to the Danwang Hall and ask them to help us refine these 6 scarlet fire-colored glass Dan, we will at most give them 1 scarlet fire-colored glass Dan as a reward, but you want 3 here. Don't tell me you didn't cheat us?" Cough cough. Qin Feiyong coughed a few times and said seriously, "I am refining the best quality pill." Elder One rolled his eyes and said, "So what if it's the best quality pill? It can only increase a small realm." Ugh. Qin Feiyong was stunned and said, "The best quality pill can't be measured by price. If you have to calculate it like this, then I can't help it." The two looked at each other, as if reaching some kind of agreement, and nodded at the same time. About the scarlet fire-colored glass Dan, let's think about it again. If you have nothing to do, you can walk around, or you can go find Ling and Yun Fei to talk about old times. We still have something to do, so we'll leave first. I'll call someone to take you to your residence later," Elder One said very tactfully. Then the two of them got up and hurried outside. Qin Feiyong hurriedly got up and shouted, Hey, don't be like this, at most I'll take 1 less." The two of them ignored him and disappeared like a wisp of smoke. "At any rate, it's the War Emperor, can you not be stingy?" Qin Feiyong despised. The duck in his mouth flew away just like that, and he was very unhappy. Returning to the chair, he took out the nether devil flame, and with a slight thought, the black flame rose 1/2 meter high, and a terrifying temperature quickly spread out. But he himself couldn't feel the slightest bit of heat. Qin Feiyong was amazed. It was just that he didn't know what level of pill fire this nether devil flame was. There were strong and weak alchemy fires too. Without a doubt, the pill fire of the Iron Bull Town's pill hall was of the lowest grade. The pill fire of Black Bear City's pill hall should be of a higher grade. Suddenly, he smelled something burning. He looked around suspiciously and his expression changed. It turned out that the temperature in the conference hall was too high. The tables, chairs, coffee tables, windows, and everything made of wood in the conference hall were all burnt. The fabric was already burning. He hurriedly put away the netherworld devil flame and grabbed the teapot to extinguish the fire. However, the fire was ferocious, and in a few blinks of an eye, the wood was also on fire. More importantly, there was only a little bit of water in the teapot. It was not enough to put out the fire. "We're done for." Qin Feiyong's face twitched. He had just arrived at the Martial King Hall, yet he had already burned down the meeting hall. Elder Wan and the beautiful woman would definitely go crazy from anger. The fire was getting more and more terrifying. He hurriedly ran out of the main hall and shouted, "There's a fire, quickly come and put out the fire." "What? How did it catch fire?" When the nearby disciples heard the roar, they immediately ran over. What happened? At this time, a burly man walked over with large strides. When he saw the hall that had turned into a sea of fire, his eyes immediately widened. Qin Feiyong coughed dryly, pretended to be confused and said, "Yeah, what's going on?" The burly man was startled and asked, "Haven't you been here the whole time?" Qin Feiyong nodded. "Yes, but I really don't know what's going on, but it suddenly caught fire." "Is that so?" The burly man looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyong felt a little uncomfortable, and quickly changed the topic. "Did Elder One call you here?" The burly man said, "Yes, Elder One asked me to protect you. He also specially instructed me to not leave you by even a single step." Qin Feiyong said, "In other words, you are the 9-star War King?" The burly man nodded. Qin Feiyong said, "Let's go, bring me to the treasure pavilion first." "Shouldn't we put out the fire first?" The burly man said. Qin Feiyong looked to both sides, and dozens of disciples were running over quickly. He said, "I have urgent matters to attend to. They will put out the fire, don't worry, let's go." Then he hurriedly slipped away. "Hurry up and put out the fire." The burly man glanced at Qin Feiyong, and then at the hall, and said to the disciples who were running over, and then chased after Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong ran hundreds of meters in one breath. The burly man was puzzled. "What's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry?" Before Qin Feiyong could answer, an angry roar came from the conference hall. "Zhang Haoyan, you are a jinx." It was Elder Wan's voice. "Jinx?" The burly man was stunned, and seemed to understand a little. He looked at Qin Feiyong strangely and said, "You didn't set the fire, did you?" Qin Feiyong's face turned serious, and he said unhappily, "How could I do such a thing? Then why did Elder Wan scold you?" The burly man was puzzled. "Maybe I'm an eyesore, don't talk nonsense. Quickly take me to the treasure pavilion," Qin Feiyong urged. The fire in the conference hall must have something to do with this kid. The burly man muttered, and then grabbed Qin Feiyong, and rushed to the west side of the city. Even with the speed of a 9-star battle king, it still took them half an hour to reach the treasure pavilion. "It's Zhang Haoyan. He actually dares to come out alone." "No, the one beside him is the Martial Imperial Hall's managing elder. I remember his name is Shizheng, a 9-star battle king. He actually has a 9-star battle king protecting him. The Martial Imperial Hall really thinks highly of him." As soon as Qin Feiyong entered the treasure pavilion, the people inside whispered to each other. However, Qin Feiyong ignored them all. A staff member went up to him and asked, "Young Master Zhang, what do you want to buy?" Qin Feiyong said, "Take me to the auction house." Shizheng added, "I want a VIP room." "Okay, please follow me." The staff member turned around and led the two of them straight to the second floor. Arriving at the door of a VIP room, Qin Feiyong was about to enter. "Wait." Shizheng reached out to stop him and said in a low voice, "I'll go in and take a look first." Before Qin Feiyong could react, he pushed the door open and entered. After carefully inspecting the VIP room, he led Qin Feiyong in. The staff member said, "Young Master Zhang, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." "Okay." Qin Feiyong nodded. After the staff member left, Qin Feiyong glanced at the VIP room. The decoration was not luxurious, but it was not ordinary either. 2 armchairs were neatly placed in the center, and it was obvious that they had been carefully carved. In front of the chairs there was a transparent floor-to-ceiling window, and he could clearly see the situation outside. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked down. Below was the auction house. It was very big, enough to accommodate thousands of people. And now there were about 300 to 400 people. There was a high platform in the center, and a white-haired old man was standing on the platform, presiding over the auction. The item being auctioned now was a dagger, and many people were bidding. Qin Feiyong looked carefully for a while and lost interest. The quality of the dagger was not bad, but compared to Chang Shui it was worlds apart. He turned around and sat on the chair, looking at Shizheng who was standing beside him. Shizheng scanned the auction house, his face full of vigilance. Qin Feiyong said with a smile, "Elder, relax. Even if someone wants to deal with me, it won't be so fast." "Don't be careless." Shizheng shook his head. "This person is quite dutiful." Qin Feiyong muttered to himself. The auction was in full swing. One item after another was constantly being auctioned, but none of them were what Qin Feiyong wanted. Just as he lost patience and was about to get up and leave, the white-haired old man on the high platform took out an exquisite jade box and said with a smile, "The next item to be auctioned is very precious. Everyone, open your eyes and look carefully." "Precious?" Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned. He returned to his seat and fixed his eyes on it. The old man in white opened the jade box and took out a medicinal herb. The medicinal herb was as thick as a baby's arm and as long as a chopstick. It was fiery red as if it was condensed by flames, and its shape was almost exactly the same as a ginseng. Fire ginseng. Qin Feiyong's eyes trembled, and he immediately became spirited. In fact, he came to the treasure pavilion to see if there was a pill furnace, but he did not expect to encounter a fire ginseng. The appearance of the fire ginseng caused the entire auction house to boil. The white-haired old man said with a smile, "I don't need to introduce this treasure. The starting price is 300 gold coins, and there is no upper limit. Begin." 400. 500. 1,000. 2,000. The price soared up with a whoosh. 10 breaths later, the price of the fire ginseng had risen to 5,000. This price was already too much for many people to bear, and they could only watch as others increased the price. After a while, the price soared to 20,000, and only a few people were still competing. I Shuiyang am taking this fire ginseng. 30,000. An extremely arrogant voice came from one of the VIP rooms. As if they were afraid of this person, no one bid anymore. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and asked, Elder Shi, who is Shuiyang? Shizheng said. He is a core disciple of the Danwang Hall. His talent in alchemy is ranked in the top 10 among all the disciples, and his future is limitless. Moreover, he has a very good relationship with the first prince of the royal family, so many people will be respectful when they meet him. Danwang Hall. A cold light flashed in Qin Feiyang's eyes as he said indifferently, I bid 40,000. This voice sounds like Jiang Haoyan's? That guy is a lawless person. Others are afraid of Shuiyang, but he definitely isn't. In addition, he has a deep grudge with the Danwang Hall, so he will definitely fight with Shuiyang to the end. This is going to be a good show. After hearing Qin Feiyang's voice, the others crossed their arms and looked at the two VIP rooms playfully. There was a moment of silence. Shuiyang's voice came. Jiang Haoyan, you better do your best. 50,000. There was a threatening tone in his voice. Qin Feiyang sneered. Who do you think you are? 100,000. Raising the price by 50,000 in one go, this guy is really rich. Everyone was dumbfounded. Shuiyang was so angry that he laughed. Good, very good. I will play with you today. I want to see how many gold coins you have on you. 200,000. Chapter 133. It's not much, but it's enough to trample on you. 300,000. Qin Feiyang said in disdain. Trample on me? Do you have the ability to do so? 400,000. Shuiyang shouted angrily. Shizheng was shocked and hurriedly said, Jiang Haoyan, 400,000 is far more than the value of the fire ginseng. You can't act on impulse and be a fool. Don't worry, I'm very calm now. I haven't lost my mind. Qin Feiyang waved his hand at Shizheng and sneered, Shuiyang, right? I'm not even afraid of Jia He, so why would I not be afraid of a little tramp like you? 500,000. Shuiyang flew into a rage and roared, You dare to call me a little tramp? Today I'll fight you to the death. 600,000. Qin Feiyang said. 700,000. Shuiyang said. 800,000. Qin Feiyang said. 900,000. Shuiyang said, 1 million. A stalk of fire ginseng was sold for a sky-high price of 1 million. The two of them were too crazy. Even if they were rich, they couldn't squander money like this, right? The most excited one was the white-haired old man on the stage. Although the fire ginseng was rare, it was usually sold for between 100,000 and 200,000. 1 million, and this was the first time in history. Shizheng was also dumbfounded. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, My young master Jiang, you really can't continue. If you really need the fire ginseng, I'll talk to Elder Wan and ask him to sell it to you at the market price. Is he willing to? Qin Feiyang said in disdain. This? Shizheng hesitated. The fire ginseng wasn't a cabbage that could be found everywhere. Even the Martial Imperial Hall only had a few stalks. Continue, why? Are you done with your temper? Shuiyang's arrogant laughter came from the VIP room opposite. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, I'd like to see how big your temper is. 1,100,000. He's still increasing the price. Everyone went crazy. 1,200,000. Shuiyang said without hesitation. Qin Feiyang's lips curled up slightly and said in a mocking tone, Since you want it so much, I'll be generous for once and let you have it. Everyone was stunned. They all thought that Qin Feiyang would continue to raise the price, but he actually gave up. Haha, Shuiyang laughed loudly and said, Don't pretend if you don't have the ability. Qin Feiyang said playfully, You still haven't reacted? Is your brain filled with shit? Would I tell you that I don't have any gold coins? What? No gold coins. Hearing this, everyone was stunned, their faces twitching. If you don't have any gold coins, how can you increase it by hundreds of thousands? What if Shuiyang doesn't follow you? How are you going to settle the bill? This guy was too much of a bastard. That brat Shuiyang was too stupid. Not only did he not have the slightest bit of self-awareness, he was even complacent, thinking that he was so great. In reality, he was being taken for a fool. There was no sound coming from the VIP room. Shuiyang was infuriated. Qin Feiyang praised, "You actually used 2 million to buy a fire ginseng. You're really generous. I admire you from the bottom of my heart. Why don't we become friends?" These words. This was undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire. "I'm going to kill you," Shuiyang roared, bristling with anger. "This is the treasure pavilion. Who dares to act rashly?" The white-haired old man on the stage shouted. Qin Feiyang said, "Yes, this is the treasure pavilion. Do you think this is the Danwang Hall, where you can do whatever you want?" Shuiyang suppressed the anger in his heart and gritted his teeth. "Jiang Haoyan, we've formed a grudge. Let's see how long you can be arrogant." Qin Feiyang said lightly, "It's not that I'm arrogant, it's that you're too stupid. I don't understand why the Danwang Hall would let a pig like you out to embarrass themselves." Crack. In the VIP room opposite, the sound of a chair breaking could be heard immediately. Cough, cough. The old man in white on the stage coughed and held back his laughter. He said solemnly, "I now announce that the final winner of the fire ginseng is Shuiyang. Everyone, please give him a warm round of applause." Clap. A loud round of applause suddenly sounded. However, in Shuiyang's ears this was a great irony. He felt that everyone was laughing at him and treating him as an idiot. The sound of the slaps was like a slap to his face. It made him so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Qin Feiyang sneered. With such a low IQ, he wanted to fight with him. He was really looking for trouble. Next, the old man in white took out another auction item. The auction continued. Qin Feiyang didn't look at it anymore. He got up and walked out of the VIP room. Shizheng hurriedly followed and asked, "Where are you going now?" Qin Feiyang said, "I want to see the manager of the treasure pavilion." Shizheng said, "The manager of the treasure pavilion is the white-haired old man on the stage. His surname is Li. Everyone calls him Manager Li. Just wait here. I'll arrange it for you." "Thank you." Qin Feiyang smiled. Shizheng nodded and quickly left. Qin Feiyang returned to the VIP room. Not long later, a woman in red walked into the auction house. She whispered a few words into the white-haired old man's ear. The white-haired old man glanced at the VIP room where Qin Feiyang was. After saying a few words to the woman in red, he left the auction house in large strides. Soon, a series of footsteps could be heard. Shizheng and the white-haired old man entered the VIP room one after another. Qin Feiyang got up and greeted him. "Greetings, Manager Li." The white-haired old man waved his hand. "Don't be polite, don't be polite. I should be the one thanking you. After all, it was you who made my treasure pavilion earn a lot." Qin Feiyang smiled. "I'm proud and you're the one who benefits. It's a win-win situation." Yes, yes, yes. The white-haired old man nodded and asked with a smile, "Little brother, why did you call me here?" Qin Feiyang said, "I want to ask, does the treasure pavilion have a pill furnace?" Pill furnace? The white-haired old man was stunned for a moment before coming to a realization. He smiled and said, "There must be a pill furnace, and I can make the decision to give you a good one. However, there is a condition." Qin Feiyang said, "Tell me about it." The white-haired old man said, "My treasure pavilion will provide the herbs. You help me refine 500 top-grade healing pills and 500 top-grade bone replenishing pills." Shizheng frowned. Wasn't this clearly stealing his business? Qin Feiyang's eyes narrowed slightly as he smiled. The mind of a businessman is indeed different. "However, I have to see first if the pill furnace you gave me is worth 1,000 peak-grade medicinal pills." The white-haired old man smiled. "Sure, I'll go get it now." Qin Feiyang hurriedly said, "Wait a minute, there's one more thing. I wonder if the treasure pavilion has any fire ginseng. I need 3. This." The white-haired old man hesitated. Qin Feiyang said, "I'm not asking for it for free. I'll buy it from you at the usual auction price." The white-haired old man waved his hand. "You've misunderstood, that's not what I meant. I'm just wondering if you know how to refine the scarlet fire-colored glass pellets?" Qin Feiyang nodded. The white-haired old man's eyes lit up and he smiled. How about this? I won't ask for the healing pills and bone replenishing pills. If you refine 10 scarlet fire-colored glass pellets for us, not only will I give you the pill furnace, but I'll also give you 3 fire ginseng. What do you think? 10. Qin Feiyong was shocked. The precious treasure pavilion was indeed worthy of being the largest trading place in the great Qin Empire. Since he couldn't get anything from the Martial King Hall, he should at least get something from the treasure pavilion. He shook his head. This isn't a good deal. Apart from the pill furnace and fire ginseng, I also want 3 scarlet fire-colored glass pellets as payment. 3. The white-haired old man's face twitched as he said in disdain, "Little brother, you should come to the treasure pavilion because you're too cunning." Shizheng couldn't help but laugh. This? Qin Feiyong was a little embarrassed as he said again, "I'm only refining peak-grade pellets." So what? Isn't the effect the same? I don't believe that I can break through 2 stages in one go. Forget it, I'm not going to argue with you anymore. Let's stick to our agreement. 500 healing pills and 500 bone replenishing pills, and I'll give you the pill furnace. As for the 3 fire ginseng, how about 150,000 gold each? The white-haired old man said. Qin Feiyong said helplessly, "Sure, but I only have 200,000 gold right now." Are you trying to get something for nothing? The white-haired old man was helpless. Qin Feiyong felt even more embarrassed. He couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. "Fine, give it to me when you have money. You're an alchemist anyway, I'm not afraid that you can't pay me back." The white-haired old man sighed as he turned and walked out of the VIP room. Qin Feiyong turned his head to look at Shizheng and said, "Tell me honestly, is my reward really that high?" "This, indeed." Shizheng stammered as if he found it hard to speak. "Forget it, don't say it." Qin Feiyong returned to the chair weakly. He felt very hurt. It seemed that he had to lower the standard. After a while, his eyes flashed coldly as he asked, "Elder Shi, what's Shui Yang's cultivation?" Shizheng thought for a while and said, "It's said that he's a 3-star martial ancestor." "So strong?" Qin Feiyong frowned. This time, the white-haired old man pushed the door open and entered. Qin Feiyong stood up to welcome him. The white-haired old man waved his hand and 3 fire ginseng and a pill furnace appeared on the ground. Qin Feiyong squatted on the ground and looked carefully. After confirming that it was the fire ginseng, he looked at the pill furnace. The pill furnace was as big as a face and was completely black. There were some unknown patterns engraved on it. From the surface, the quality was indeed not bad. It was even better than the pill furnace that Luo Xiong used. But it was more than 1,000 supreme-grade pills. He stood up and looked at the white-haired old man. He shook his head and said, "Manager-Li, you really know how to do business. For this pill furnace, I can at most give you 200 supreme-grade pills." "So little?" Manager-Li raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyong said unhappily, "You really think that supreme-grade pills are made of mud? This is already a lot. If you agree, we'll make a deal. Otherwise, I'll leave immediately." Manager-Li frowned. As a businessman, the first thing to consider was whether or not he would lose money. No matter how bad this pill furnace was, it was still worth a few 100,000 gold coins. 200 supreme-grade pills, was it worth this price? Everyone had heard of supreme-grade pills, but there were very few people who had actually seen it. Therefore, it was difficult for him to make a decision. It seems that this trip was in vain. "Elder Shi, let's go. I'll treat you to a few drinks." Chapter 134. Seeing that Qin Feiyong opened the door and was about to walk out, "I'll bet." Stewardly gritted his teeth, turned to Qin Feiyong and nodded. 200 then. Deal. A businessman should be so straightforward. Qin Feiyong smiled, turned around, and put the furnace and fire ginseng into his Qiankuan bag. "You can be proud." Stewardly rolled his eyes, took out a piece of paper from his arms, and handed it to Qin Feiyong. "Sign it." "What's this?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. He took it and looked at it carefully. Suddenly, his veins bulged. It was an IO. The content was, "Today, Zhang Haoyan bought 3 fire ginseng for a total of 450,000 yuan. Because he had no money to pay, he left an IO." Qin Feiyong looked up at Stewardly and said with a dark face, "Is there a need to do this?" Stewardly said, "Of course. What if you go back on your words? I don't know you very well. You win. Qin Feiyang glared at him, bit his finger, and directly pressed a fingerprint. Stewardly took the IOU, looked at the fingerprint and suddenly smiled. What are you doing? I'm a core disciple of the Danwang Hall. Do I look like someone who will pay a bad debt? Suddenly, there was a roar from outside. It was Shui Yang. Stewardly raised his eyebrows and said to Qin Feiyang, I'll go out and take a look. Qin Feiyang also followed curiously. Out of the door, turned right, walked a dozen meters, and arrived at the reception on the second floor. At this moment, Shui Yang was in a rage. The four tall and sturdy men surrounded him in the middle. Their expressions were somewhat awkward. There was also a woman in white, about 25 or 26, explaining something to Shui Yang. Jiang Haotian. When Shui Yang noticed Qin Feiyang walking over, his face immediately darkened. No need to thank me. Qin Feiyang joked. This person was not bad-looking. He was 1.8 meters tall and handsome, but his IQ was not good. Shui Yang clenched his fists as a sharp light flickered in his eyes. He gritted his teeth and said, Just you wait. I'll let you know what pain feels like. Then I'll wait. Don't disappoint me. Qin Feiyang didn't take it to heart at all. There were many people who threatened him, but who could really do it? He was not even afraid of a battle emperor, let alone a 3-star martial ancestor. Manager Li walked forward and glanced at the 4 guards. He frowned and asked, What are you doing? Manager, you're finally here. As though she had seen her savior, the woman in white hurriedly walked to Manager Li's side and explained, Shui Yang doesn't have the money to pay, so we don't dare to let him leave. No money? Manager Li furrowed his brows and waved his aged hand, indicating for the 4 guards to step back. Subsequently, he walked in front of Shui Yang and said in a deep voice, You are very clear about the rules of the treasure pavilion. You have already bought the fire ginseng. If you dare to renege on your debt, don't blame me for being ruthless. Shui Yang's gaze trembled as he hurriedly said, I'm not trying to renege on my debt. It's because I really don't have that much money. Manager Li, can you give me some time? Manager Li said angrily, You don't have the money and you're still fighting? Shui Yang pointed at Qin Feiyang and said, He doesn't have the money, but isn't he still fighting? Manager Li said, He's smarter than you. Shui Yang's eyes immediately turned red as he clenched his fists tightly. Manager Li waved his hand and said, All right, I'll give you 1 day. At this time tomorrow, if you can't hand over 1,200,000, I'll go to the Danwang Hall and ask Old Man He for it. Thank you, Manager Li. Shui Yang cupped his hands and said, Go write an IOU and let him put his fingerprint on it. Manager Li instructed the white-clothed woman beside him, Go and get someone to prepare 100 sets of healing pills and 100 sets of bone-replenishing pills. Send them to me immediately. Manager Li ordered another guard. Then, he brought Qin Feiyang and Shizheng into the lounge at the side. And throughout the whole process, Shui Yang stared at Qin Feiyang, murderous intent lurking in his eyes. After closing the door, Manager Li walked to the tea table and said, Please take a seat. Qin Feiyang did not stand on ceremony and sat down on the chair. He looked around the lounge and asked, Manager Li, where's the chief pavilion master? Manager Li was making tea. When he heard this, he raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang, puzzled. Why are you asking about him? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, I'm just curious. Manager Li smiled and said, The chief pavilion master has been in Xingyue City for this period of time. Qin Feiyang said, For his daughter? How do you know? Manager Li was surprised. I have some friendship with his daughter. Qin Feiyang smiled. Manager Li suddenly understood and did not say anything. He lowered his head and continued to make tea. A short while later, the guard took a Qiankuan bag and entered the lounge. Manager Li said, Give it to Jiang Haotian. The guard handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed it and stood up saying, Since the matter is settled, I won't disturb you anymore. Goodbye. Manager Li nodded and smiled. Send the pills over as soon as possible. Haven't you heard that being impatient won't let you eat hot tofu? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, turned around and quickly left the treasure pavilion with Shizheng. Shizheng asked, Where are we going now? After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang said, Let's find a restaurant to stay in first. Shizheng was shocked and hurriedly said, no, it's too dangerous to stay in a restaurant. Let's go back to the Martial Imperial Hall, it's safer. Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice, Elder One asked you to protect me, not to express your opinion. You have to listen to me now. Shizheng frowned. Qin Feiyong sighed inwardly. This person was doing his job diligently, so he should be a bit more polite. He smiled and said, Elder Shi, I know you're doing this for my sake, but I have my own plans. Can you not interfere? All right. Shizheng nodded. How could he not agree to it when it had already come to this point? Flying Phoenix Restaurant. This was the most luxurious restaurant in the West District. It had a total of 5 floors and was decorated with carved beams and painted pillars. In the center of the roof there was a huge stone carving. It was a flaming phoenix, looking down at everyone with a proud expression. It was lifelike. This was the Flying Phoenix Restaurant's totem. Qin Feiyong raised his head and took a glance. Then he walked into the main hall of the restaurant. He immediately attracted the attention of everyone. Shizheng glanced at the surrounding diners and frowned slightly. He said in a low voice, Aren't we too conspicuous by coming here? Qin Feiyong said, I want everyone in Swallow City to know that I'm here. Why is that? Shizheng was puzzled. Qin Feiyong said, Because I'm waiting for someone. Waiting for someone? Shizheng was even more puzzled. A waiter greeted them with a flattering smile. Young Master Jiang, Elder Shi, are you here to stay or have a meal? Qin Feiyong said, Stay in the inn. Arrange a slightly more secluded room for me. No problem, please follow me. The waiter led them to a corner on the 5th floor. There was a door there. The waiter pushed the door open and said, Young Master Jiang, this is the quietest room in our Flying Phoenix restaurant. Do you like it? Qin Feiyong walked in. The room wasn't big, but it had a dining room, a tea room and a bedroom. It was also very clean. Qin Feiyong nodded. Not bad, you can leave first. The waiter said, All right. Let me know if you need anything. After the waiter left, Shizheng closed the door and looked around the room vigilantly. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, Elder Shi, I'm going to refine pills. If you're bored you can go down and drink some wine. While you're at it, spread the room number of my room. Shizheng was stunned. Qin Feiyong shook his head. I don't think that's necessary. That waiter will probably spread the news. Shizheng looked at him and asked, There's no alchemy room here. Where are you going to refine pills? As long as there's alchemy fire, there's an alchemy room. Qin Feiyong smiled and entered the castle. In any case, everyone already knew that he had a hidden treasure, so there was no need for him to hide anymore. What's this kid's background? Shizheng looked around the room, his heart full of disbelief. Wolf King was lying on the floor of the castle, listless, bored, and unmotivated. Seeing Qin Feiyong appear, it immediately got up and said angrily, Little Qin Zi, when will you let me out to get some fresh air? If this goes on, I'll get sick from holding it in. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes and said, I wish I could be as carefree as you, cultivating every day, but you're not satisfied. You really don't know how to be content. Get lost, don't talk to me about these useless things. I want to go out, go out, go out. Wolf King roared in exasperation. Qin Feiyong said helplessly, Okay, when I'm done with my business, I'll find a chance to send you out of the city. Then you can do whatever you want. That's more like it. Wolf King smiled, changing his attitude faster than flipping a book. Step aside, I have to prepare to make elixirs. Qin Feiyong said, walked to the altar where the iron book was placed, took out the elixir furnace, and put it next to the iron book. Wolf King was stunned and asked, What do you mean you're going to make elixirs here? Aren't you afraid that the iron book will be burned? I don't think so. Qin Feiyong shook his head and frowned slightly. For safety's sake, he finally took out the chang shui and cut the iron box hard. As a result, there was not even a trace of it. He dripped blood to open the iron box and cut the iron book, but there was also no trace of it. TSK. It's so hard. Wolf King came up, his eyes shining and drooling, and asked, Do you think it's a divine object? Qin Feiyong said angrily, You're drooling on the ground. Wolf King licked his lips and said with a sinister smile, Why don't we use this box to make an armor for you? In your dreams. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. As long as he saw something of value, the white-eyed wolf would want to take it for himself. He didn't know how to describe his character. However, even if the iron box and the iron book were really divine objects, they could only look at them, because he couldn't even move the iron box, let alone use it to make armor. Phew. After letting out a long breath, Qin Feiyong took out the Chingkuan bag that Manager Li gave him, took out a set of medicinal ingredients for the heal pill, and prepared to start refining. To be honest, he was very nervous now. Chapter 135. Don't disturb me when I'm refining pills. Qin Feiyong reminded Wolf King and waved his hand. The nether devil flame flew through the air and floated below the pill furnace. With a thought, the flame rose. The temperature in the castle soared. Wolf King quickly retreated to the back corner. His pupils constricted as he was quite afraid of the nether devil flame. In an instant, the top of the pill furnace was burned red with heat waves. Using one's own pill fire to refine pills, and using someone else's pill fire to refine pills were two completely different things. For example, in the pill refining room, Qin Feiyong had to use his mental power to get used to the high temperature of the pill fire and gradually merge with the pill fire before he could control the pill fire. But now, with the nether devil flame, he only needed a thought. This way he could save a lot of time. Buzz! A wave of mental power rushed out from the top of his head, rolled up a medicinal herb and slowly put it into the pill furnace. However, just as it was put into the pill furnace, with a burst of black smoke, the medicinal herb turned into ashes on the spot. What's going on? Qin Feiyong frowned. He had refined the healing pill more than 100 times. His control of the pill fire was not superb, but it was definitely not wrong. He even remembered clearly that the first medicinal herb of the healing pill needed to be at 30%. Now, he had indeed controlled it at 30%. But how did the medicinal herb turn into ashes? He suspiciously put his hand into the pill furnace and retracted it like lightning. He said in surprise, "Why is the temperature inside the pill furnace so high?" After thinking for a while, he suddenly realized. It must be because the level of the two pill fires was different. Without a doubt, the level of the nether devil flame was definitely higher than the pill fire of the pill hall. There was naturally a difference in temperature between the two. So he had to adjust the flame again. He figured this out. Qin Feiyong had a thought and controlled the pill fire at 20%. The medicinal herb turned into ashes again. Controlling it at 10%, the medicinal herb still turned into ashes in the end. Not even 10%? Qin Feiyong was stunned. The level of the nether devil flame was so high that it was beyond his expectations. Then, he controlled the flame at 5%. This time he finally succeeded in refining the spiritual liquid. The first medicinal ingredient originally required 30% of the fire, but now it only requires 5%. The second medicinal ingredient originally required 40% maturity. Is it only 10% now? After a series of experiments, this was indeed the case. Next, he let go of his courage and began to refine the spirit liquid. The third medicinal ingredient, 10% of the fire. The fourth ingredient, 15% maturity. Very soon, 8 drops of spirit liquid were extracted. The last 2 steps were to fuse the 8 types of spirit liquids, and then add the solidifying liquid to form the pill. He did it all in one go without any delay. After the pills were refined, Qin Feiyong could not wait to grab it. He opened his eyes wide and looked at it carefully. Immediately, his body shook and a bright light burst out from his eyes. On the surface of the recovery pill, there was a circle of pill inscriptions. Not only were they clear and distinct, they were even emitting wisps of light. It felt as if a halo had been added to the pill. This was a true top-grade medicinal pill. Qin Feiyong was extremely excited. Alchemy fire was indeed the key to affecting the quality of the pill. Without the nether devil fire, he would definitely not be able to refine such a perfect top-grade pill. Right now, he was fully deserving of the title of a top-grade alchemist. I can't be complacent. The top-grade pill is not the end. I have to continue working hard. He muttered to himself. After calming down, he began to refine the bone-replenishing pill. Time flew. 2 days later, late at night, a round figure sneakily climbed in through the window. It was Fatso. When he did not see Qin Feiyong in the room, he whispered, Zhang Laoda, Fat Lord is here. Come out quickly. Whoosh! Qin Feiyong immediately appeared out of thin air and said with a smile, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Waiting for me? Fatso was stunned. How would I dare to go to the Danwang Hall to look for you now? Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. He was afraid that he would be captured alive before entering the Danwang Hall. Therefore, he lived in such a conspicuous place and let everyone in the city know that he was here. If Fatso had something to do with him, he would naturally come here. Fatso pondered carefully and understood Qin Feiyong's motive. He sighed, this is too troublesome. We have to get a few image crystals as soon as possible. Qin Feiyong said, Are you kidding? The image crystals are so expensive. Are you going to pay for it? Fatso laughed. Even if you sell Fat Lord, you won't be able to get so many gold coins. So Zhang Laoda, you have to think of a way to get these image crystals. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. He glanced around the room and asked doubtfully, Where's Shi Zheng? He's drinking alone downstairs. Fatso pointed downstairs. Qin Feiyong said, He didn't see it. It's best. How is it? Did you get the herbs? He was waiting for Fatso here because he was waiting for the herbs. Is there anything that Fat Lord can't do? Fatso glared at him unhappily. He took out a Qingkuan bag and threw it to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong grabbed the Qingkuan bag with one hand and Fatso with the other. The next moment, they appeared in the castle. Hi, Brother Wolf. Upon seeing the Wolf King, Fatty immediately extended his hand to greet him warmly. Your meat should be very fragrant. Brother Wolf hasn't eaten meat for a few months. Wolf King opened his bloody mouth and stared at him with evil intentions. Before it could finish, Fatso shivered and hid behind Qin Feiyong like a frightened piglet. Useless. Wolf King looked at him with disdain, then lowered his head and continued to sleep. Qin Feiyong took out the medicinal herbs and counted them one by one. No more, no less, just 3 of each kind. Next, as he sorted out the medicinal herbs, he said, Fatso, let me ask you a question. Fatso said, Ask away. Qin Feiyong said, Do you already know my true identity? Fatso chuckled. Then tell Fat Lord, who is your true identity? Qin Feiyong said indifferently, You're not even the least bit surprised. Seems like it's as I expected. Fatso, since you know that I'm Qin Feiyong, why are you still so close to me? What? You're Qin Feiyong. The fatty looked at him in shock and disbelief, his eyes and mouth wide open. Qin Feiyong raised his head and looked at Fatso and said, If you continue to pretend, I'll let the white-eyed wolf eat you. Oh. Wolf King was also very cooperative, baring his teeth and growling repeatedly. Fatso shrunk his neck and hurriedly said, Yes, 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 Fat Lord indeed knew that you were Qin Feiyong a long time ago. The reason why he is still so close to you is because he guessed that your background is not small. He wants to take advantage of you and take advantage of you. This shouldn't be a big deal, right? Qin Feiyong shook his head. That's nothing, you're right, my background is not small. Fatso asked curiously. Then what is your background? Qin Feiyong said, If I tell you now, I'll kill you later. Do you still want to know? Then forget it. Fatso quickly waved his hand. Prepare the bamboo slip. I'll give you 2 perfect martial skills later. Don't disturb me now. After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he put away the pills, stood up and walked to the front of the pill furnace. He held his breath and prepared to refine the scarlet-colored glass pill. The scarlet-colored glass pill was not a heal pill or a bone-continuing pill. The medicinal ingredients for the heal pill and the bone-continuing pill were very common and cheap. They could be bought again if they were scrapped. However, the medicinal ingredients for the scarlet-colored glass pill were all very rare. If they were accidentally scrapped, they would have to spend a lot of effort to find them. Especially the leaves of the fire ginseng and the scarlet-colored glass tree. There must not be any accidents. Moreover, this was also his first time refining the scarlet-colored glass pill, so in his heart, he was more or less nervous. At this moment, Fatso's heart was completely filled with ecstasy. Zhang Lao, oh no, it was Boss Qin. He actually wanted to give him a perfect martial skill. Wasn't this surprise a little too fast? He was a little dizzy now. Felt like a dream. You are as useless as Ling Yunfei. Isn't it just 2 perfect martial skills? Is there a need to be so excited? Wolf King's contemptuous words suddenly sounded in Fatso's mind. Fatso suddenly glared and turned his head to Wolf King, ready to shout. But suddenly he remembered that Qin Feiyong was refining pills. The words that were about to come out of his mouth were swallowed back. He proudly laughed in a low voice. Fat Lord is willing, what can you do? TSK. Wolf King's eyes were full of disdain and he continued to close his eyes and nap. At the same time, Qin Feiyong also moved. Full concentration. There were a total of 9 kinds of medicinal ingredients for the scarlet-colored glass pill. When refining the spiritual liquid of these 9 medicinal ingredients, he would first control the heat to the minimum, and then gradually increase it. I didn't expect Boss Qin to really have the leaves of the scarlet-colored glass tree. Fatso secretly muttered and also calmed down, carefully observing the process of Qin Feiyong refining pills. At this moment, in the ancient castle there was a dead silence without the slightest noise. Hundreds of breaths passed. Except for the leaves of the scarlet-colored glass tree and the fire ginseng, the spiritual liquid of the other 7 medicinal ingredients had been refined, emitting a rich medicinal fragrance. And now he was even more careful. Concentrating his mental force, he did not dare to be distracted. Another 100 breaths passed. The spiritual liquid of the fire ginseng was also refined. He began to refine the leaves of the scarlet-colored glass tree again. After the leaves entered the pill furnace, he controlled the netherworld devil flame and increased the heat step by step. Suddenly, as if the heat was too strong, the leaves quickly withered. However, no spiritual liquid appeared. Qin Feiyong's face changed and hurriedly took out the leaves. Seeing that the leaves were not burned, he breathed a sigh of relief. After the temperature of the pill furnace dropped, he carefully put the leaves in again. This time, his control of the alchemy fire was more precise than before, and the heat was almost increasing bit by bit. Dozens of breaths later, the spiritual liquid was finally refined without any danger. But now was not the time to relax. There were still the last 2 steps, there must be no mistakes. Qin Feiyong looked at the 9 drops of spiritual liquid in the pill furnace, trying to relax his body and mind. Because at this time, the more nervous he was, the easier it was to make mistakes. After a long while, he began to fuse the 9 drops of spiritual liquid. Every movement was very gentle. This was a test of a person's control and patience. The slightest mistake would cause the whole thing to collapse. Gradually, the 9 drops of spiritual liquid blended together and were indistinguishable from each other, blooming with rays of light, as if a treasure was about to be born. The last step. Qin Feiyong controlled his mental force, rolled up a drop of solidifying liquid, and carefully integrated it into the spiritual liquid. Soon, the scarlet-colored glass pill was formed. The rays of light converged, revealing a pill the size of a pellet. It was fiery red all over, as if there were wisps of small flames on the surface. An intoxicating medicinal fragrance like a tide instantly swept every inch of the ancient castle. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and the scarlet-colored glass pill flew out of the pill furnace and caught it in his palm. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.